Chapter 988. Tun Dun snorted coldly and turned his head to the side, clearly too lazy to argue with Du Lin. The corners of Strange Man's mouth twitched slightly and he said with a bitter smile, "My lords, why are you so angry? Lord Tun Dun is speaking the truth. Our top fighting strength is far less than the dragon bloodline demon beasts. If those demon ancestors really take action, we might really be pushed back. However, didn't Lord Du Lin say that he would contact the demon ancestors of the god worship sect to help us?" What? Hearing this, Du Lin's nostrils suddenly snorted and a terrifying power erupted. His breath alone pushed away the extremely dense seawater in the depths of the sea. He then said in a deep voice, "Those guys are not reliable at all. Although they agreed to help, they are only helping us because of their ancestral relationship. Therefore don't expect them to do too much. If the demon ancestors of the dragon bloodline demon beasts don't take action, then those from the god worship sect won't either." "So you mean that they will only take action if the demon ancestors of the dragon bloodline demon beasts take action?" Tun Dun sneered and said in a strange tone, "Then can I understand that they don't want to help us at all? Even if the demon ancestors of the dragon bloodline demon beasts take action, if they feel that they can't beat them, they will choose not to help?" "Say what you will." Du Lin mimicked Tun Dun and turned his head to the side, but did not directly refute Tun Dun. The man let out a sigh. The outer sea demon beasts were divided into different territories. Tun Dun and Du Lin's territories were very close to each other. There were even rumors that the ancestor of these two demon beasts was the same great demon. Therefore their territories were very close to each other and they even had each other's weak points. These years, Tun Dun and Du Lin had been constantly fighting each other. It was just that their strength was similar and neither could do anything to the other. But now Du Lin did not refute Tun Dun. In other words, the demon ancestors of the god worship sect might really not take action? Then would they still have a chance of winning this war? Just like Lin Yuan's initial concerns, the so-called art of war and strategy could indeed have a certain effect in this world. The premise was that the overall strength of both sides was similar. Only then could they find other ways to make up for the odds of victory. But the current situation was, one side had ancestral demon realm experts backing them, while the other side didn't even know if their own ancestral demon realm experts would attack. "If you think of my god-worshipping sect that way, then you are wrong." As a languid voice rang out, the surrounding seawater immediately flowed in reverse and gathered, forming a dragon-shaped creature made of seawater. However, compared to the true dragons of the Four Seas dragon race, this dragon-shaped creature was more like the Western dragons from Lin Yuan's previous world. It had no horns on its head, a lion's body, a lizard's head, and a pair of large bat wings on its back. However, when Lin Yuan differentiated between Eastern and Western dragons in his previous life, he always liked to say that Western dragons had wings while Eastern dragons didn't. In fact, this is a false statement. Because one of the four great divine dragons, the winged dragon who assisted the Yellow Emperor in unifying the world and cooperated with Hamba to break the formation of bitter wind and bitter rain, was actually a true dragon with wings on its back. It was just that it didn't have a lizard's head, a lion's body, or bat wings. In fact, the image of a true dragon that people generally believed was just a patchwork image in some legends. No one knew what a true dragon looked like. After all, the dragon race didn't have reproductive isolation. The so-called 9 sons of the dragon were all different. Even the 9 sons of the ancestral dragon looked different, let alone the true dragon, that was a mixture of countless bloodlines. There was an interesting saying in the dragon race's inheritance. After the Yellow Emperor defeated Shinnong and Qiyu, he summoned the leaders of all tribes and clans to the Pusan Alliance in Zhulu County, which was also known as the Fusion Talisman of Pusan in history. Since then, all the feudal lords respected Shen Yuan as their emperor. During the fusion process, the Yellow Emperor took a part of the tribal totems and formed the totem of the people of Wuxia, the dragon. But that was what was recorded in human history. In the dragon race's inherited memories, the winged dragon wasn't the Yellow Emperor's subordinate. The relationship between the two was more like that of an ally, not the so-called superior and subordinate relationship in the legends. The Fusion Talisman of Pusan was the winged dragon's request after its success. It redefined the dragon's image in the eyes of humans, which was the image of a camel's head, deer's horns, rabbit's eyes, ox's ears, snake's neck, snake's belly, carp's scales, eagle's claws, and tiger's palms. The head of a camel was tenacious and indomitable. The horns of a deer were cautious, the eyes of a rabbit were sharp, the ears of an ox were hard-working. In other words, after the winged dragon assisted the Yellow Emperor in unifying the world, it didn't just go to the south to enjoy life without any desires. After the war, the winged dragon directly changed the image of the dragon race in the eyes of humans. The so-called 9 appearances of the divine dragon encompassed almost all the beauty and power of the world in the dragon race. Anything that involved the dragon race would inevitably become lofty and noble. Even the emperor later called himself the true dragon son of heaven. It was clear that the winged dragon's planning and layout had brought great benefits to the dragon race and itself. The dragon race became the totem of humans. Even at the point of time in Lin Yuan's previous life, after the feudal superstitions had been completely destroyed, the Chinese still considered themselves the descendants of the dragon race. But what about the winged dragon? What did it get? In many of the Taoist books, the winged dragon appeared as the god of creation. Listen. Creation. World. God. Back then, the Yellow Emperor was definitely in existence stronger than the winged dragon. Otherwise, the winged dragon wouldn't have been misunderstood by many as the Yellow Emperor's subordinate. But what about the Yellow Emperor's ending? One of the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors summed it up. Was this an identity that could be compared to the god of creation? Even his own daughter, Hidorigami, was gradually demonized and even completely degenerated into a demon. The Yellow Emperor could only imprison her. From this, it could be seen that after the fusion talisman Fushan incident, the winged dragon used the dragon totem to harvest an enormous amount of incense power. Even the dragon race of the 4 seas, which had a little bit of influence, could be said to be incomparably powerful. Which place would not pray to the Dragon King when there was a drought? The dragon race's power even extended to the time when the heavenly Tao was hidden and the human Tao was revealed. Although no one knew what happened during this period, the biggest slap in the face for the dragon race in history was when the Jianghu Dragon King was killed by Wei Zheng. A civil official with no cultivation base could have an out-of-body soul in his sleep and kill the Jianghu Dragon King. After that, the Jianghu Dragon King's soul came to Li Shimin for revenge. Li Shimin only ordered Qin Xiong and Yu Qigong to guard the door at night, and directly scared off the Jianghu Dragon King's soul. Although it was hard to say whether the historical materials were true or false, the powerful people who made up stories often met with bad consequences. The story of Wei Zheng slaying the dragon was still passed down. Just from these words, one could imagine how far the dragon race had fallen during that period. Chapter 989. Greetings, ancestral monster Ing Zai. Alien bowed to the water avatar that resembled a western dragon. The monster known as Ing Zai nodded and sneered, "Although my god-worshipping sect is not world-renowned, we will never do something that slaps our own faces. Since we have agreed to help, we will not go back on our word. This seat has come today to tell you that the ancestral monster of the dragon bloodline will definitely intervene when the outer sea monsters invade the deep sea. When the time comes, we will also intervene. Even if we cannot defeat the enemy, we will do our best to ensure that the outer sea monsters can return to the outer sea." Mutant, Tundan and Du Lin bowed to Ing Zai. Du Lin in particular had a look of fear in his eyes. It was as if he was worried that Ing Zai would come after him because of what he had said. This scene made Lin Yuan, who was watching coldly from the sidelines, laugh coldly. No matter which side the ancestral monster was from, they would not easily intervene. These powerhouses, who had been famous for many years, were different from Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan could also erupt with the combat prowess of an ancestral demon by consuming the power of incense. Moreover, once there was a need to use the power of incense, Lin Yuan would never be stingy. Just like the 3 million incense that Lin Yuan had obtained from spreading the words and theories of his previous life, he had used it to summon a big boss to help him. Before that, he had also spent nearly 200 million incense to create the Empress Arsenal to set up the southern cultivation world. But these ancestral monster experts were different from Lin Yuan. They had not cultivated to become true gods, and their lifespans were limited. After so many years, their lifespans had already been exhausted. They could only rely on Joss flame power to prolong their existence because this world was not yet complete and the 3 realms and 6 paths of reincarnation had not yet appeared. They were similar to the Yin gods of humans, but they had their own bodies and absolute autonomy. Ordinary monsters and cultivators would expend stellar energy or monster power in battle. On the other hand, most universe-enlightened ancestral demon realm experts didn't exhaust Joss flame energy in battle. To them, it was simply like expending their lives, and a casual move of theirs might cause them to lose a few years of their lifespan. Once Joss flame energy was completely exhausted, then even true gods might fall into deep slumber, whereas, the outcome of these false gods was death on the spot. So, unless it was absolutely necessary, the ancestral demon realm experts wouldn't interfere in anything. Unless it was like this battle. Once the dragon bloodline demon beasts and the outer sea demon beasts started fighting, the numbers on both sides would definitely decrease rapidly. At the same time, the ancestral demon realm experts would obtain less and less Joss flames. It could be said that their lives were truly threatened. The mutant was in the Dao initiation realm and might be about to enter the sovereign realm. However, after Lin Yuan's personal observation, he was certain that the mutant was still short of the process of accumulating incense power. Without hundreds of years of hard work and accumulation, it would be difficult to enter the sovereign realm or the transcendent realm. The other two leaders were even weaker. They were only in the Monster King realm. With such a combination, they naturally wouldn't know what kind of actions would infuriate the other party's demon ancestor. The god-worshipping religion on the outer sea demon beast side was the same. The source of their incense power was mainly from the outer sea demon beasts. In this battle, almost all of the outer sea demon beast youths had gathered to form such a huge team. If too many of them were to die here, they would naturally be affected. God-worshipping religion, dragon god temple, sea demon guild's demon ancestor. Lin Yuan's gaze flickered slightly, but he still let out a long sigh. Previously he was still too hasty. The endless sea might look sweet, but outsiders wouldn't be able to imagine the dangers hidden under this beautiful sea if they weren't personally involved. I have to put the endless sea's matter aside for the time being. Lin Yuan turned his head and looked at Cyrus beside him and said calmly, the overall situation is still under your control. However, some of the details and decisions should be left to Jianghu. That child isn't stupid, but it will always be under our wings. It will be difficult for it to grow into a true king. So, you just have to grasp the rhythm and don't let the city of trade completely go astray. When I return next time, I will make these arrogant existences pay a painful price. Yes. This subordinate will do his best and not disappoint the Dragon King today. Cyrus bowed slightly and replied in a sincere tone. In the past, Cyrus would most likely infiltrate the city of trade and hold such a treasure in its hands. However, after peeking at part of Lin Yuan's plan, Cyrus decisively gave up those tempting thoughts. This Black Jiao wasn't on the same level as it from the very beginning. Even the second-rate sage that it was a little annoyed with back then was actually a compliment to the current Cyrus. More importantly, Lin Yuan's goal was probably extremely terrifying. Even the West Sea Dragon King, who had only sensed the clash of the three powerful auras, didn't dare to make a move. They didn't dare to provoke Lin Yuan, let alone Cyrus, the demon king that was in the city of trade at that time. Sky Martial Continent? Endless Sea? Ah. Perhaps this level of achievement was a supreme hegemony in the eyes of most humans and demon beasts, but to Lin Yuan, this kind of low-level world wasn't worthy of those terrifying existences behind it. Compared to being a country bumpkin in the Sky Martial Continent, Cyrus wanted more to cross over the Sky Demon and see other worlds. It wanted to find those experts who had left their mark in history and finally resolutely stepped out of the Sky Gate, disappearing without a trace. From Cyrus's point of view, the guardians of the Gate of Heaven were nothing more than a bunch of cowards. The experts who had left never returned, so they assumed that there was endless danger outside the Gate of Heaven. Even if they reached the limits of the Jianghu world, they would still die in another world after leaving the Gate of Heaven. However, they hadn't even found or recovered a single corpse so far. Didn't that mean that those experts who had left the Sky Martial Continent hadn't died, but were unwilling to return because they had seen an even more vast world? Cyrus, who was aware of its own aptitude, knew that with its own strength, it might not be able to step into a higher realm or leave the Sky Martial Continent in its lifetime. However, if it followed Lin Yuan, that would be a different story. How difficult could it be for an expert who could kill ancestral demon realm experts like killing dogs to create an existence above the Demon King realm? Lin Yuan nodded slightly. His pitch-black body shot forward like a sharp arrow, easily breaking through the restraints of the sea as he rushed in the direction of the Sky Martial Continent. Chapter 990. Half a month later. The northern frontier, Shunning City. Li Zhong looked at the busy cultivators of the Ministry of Works with bloodshot eyes. His breath was chaotic and his qi and blood were weak. He looked very dispirited, as if he had not rested for days. Without rest for a few days, a mortal would indeed become dispirited and dispirited. However, for cultivators, even if they did not eat, drink, or sleep for half a year, they would not show any abnormalities on the surface. Therefore, Li Zhong's current appearance was definitely much weaker than he looked. Because not long ago, a mysterious expert named Qi claimed to be an old friend of the Dragon King and sent a piece of extremely terrifying information. The existence that spread the method of killing the immortals in the northern frontier did not use the nine-tailed phantom body. However, they did belong to the Fox clan but not the Fox clan of this world. The Fox clan, which was considered a big clan in the Hengduan Mountains, was not even qualified to carry the shoes of those great demons. Qingxiu, Tushan, Su and Pure Fox. They came from the 4 great fox clans of the primitive world. According to the expert named Qi, the great demons that secretly interfered in the matter of the immortals were either from the Su clan or the Jianghu clan. These 2 clans had many demons that brought disaster to the country. For example, the Su clan once had a 9-tailed fox demon named Su Daji, who wreaked havoc in a powerful country called Yinshang. Although King Zhou of Yinshang was a human, his cultivation was tyrannical and he was known as the human king. No matter if it was immortals, gods or demons that entered the territory of Yinshang, they all had to obediently bow their heads. Whoever dared to be presumptuous would die. However, such a powerful country was ultimately defeated by a fox demon. Thinking about it carefully, Li Zhong felt that it was inconceivable and terrifying at the same time. The other Jianghu clan was not simple either. Although there was no famous great demon mentioned by Qi, in history they worked together with a human called Han Qi to destroy a country called Yu country and killed a mighty person called. These 2 fox clans were famous for bringing disaster to the country. Now, one of them or even both of them had their eyes on the northern frontier. Li Zhong did not know about the 4 great fox clans, but he knew about the existence of the 9-tailed fox. This was because there was a legend about the 9-tailed fox in the Sky Martial continent. However, it was only a legend. Even in the era when those unknown almighty people were cultivating in the Sky Martial continent, the Fox clan only had 7-tailed fox demons. These 7-tailed fox demons would often choose to leave the Sky Martial continent through the gate of heaven and disappear without a trace. However, there were rumors circulating within the Fox clan that the reason why the 7-tailed fox demons left was to pursue the 8-tailed fox Dao, which was stronger than the 7-tailed fox demons. There were even rumors that there was a 9-tailed fox demon above the 8-tailed fox demons. The 7-tailed fox demon could be said to be an almighty person who could turn the world upside down with a wave of his hand. According to the legends, the 8-tailed fox demon was undying and indestructible. Even if it was completely destroyed, it could be resurrected. At most, one of its tails would be broken and it would be temporarily weakened to the 7-tailed fox demon's strength. The even more terrifying 9-tailed fox demon was only a legend. As for the true terrifying might, those ancient creatures did not even dare to think about it. The so-called secret technique of the Fox clan, 9-tailed illusion, did not refer to the real 9-tailed fox demon. It was just a description of how powerful this illusion technique was. In reality, in the Jianghu world, if a 9-tailed fox demon was truly born, it could exterminate countless experts with a single breath. Why would it need to use a mere illusion technique to bewitch the masses? Li Zhong had never imagined that the legendary 9-tailed fox demon actually existed. Furthermore, in the wilderness there was more than one 9-tailed fox demon. Furthermore, they were not considered powerful characters. Even if they could bring calamity to a country, they were just pawns in the hands of others. Although he did not know what kind of existence the wilderness was, Li Zhong was very clear that whether it was the wilderness or the 4 great fox clans, to the current northern frontier, it would be a complete and utter disaster. You've been busy for so long. Have you gained anything? Li Zhong reached out to grab the Minister of Work's sleeve and asked in a tone that was close to pleading. He did not know what they would face in the northern frontier. However, he was certain that the Blackwater Dragon King, who was hidden in the northern frontier, definitely had an extraordinary background. For the sake of their current plan, they could only make preparations with the help of the Dragon King's guidance. Otherwise, when disaster struck, they would be no different from ants. They would not even have the chance to struggle. The Minister of Works was silent for a moment before slowly saying, "We have gained something. However, I'm afraid that you won't believe me if I say it." Having said that, he gently waved his sleeve, indicating for Li Zhong to follow him. The two came in front of a huge glass window. The Minister of Works raised his finger and pointed at the figure in the observation cabin. The figure was still squirming and struggling after being wrapped up by layers of bandages covered with dense black runes. He said, "This guy is one of the undyings that we caught before. Because we happened to be studying it at that time, Lei Fan did not rescue it. So far we have not caught any maternal undyings. The ones sent by the Blackwater Army were basically the original residents of the northern frontier. They were transformed into undyings after being affected by the death aura after they died. We could not find anything from them at all. Having said that, he reached out and pressed the glass window in front of him and said in a deep voice, "Only this guy is our last hope. Although we have done all kinds of experiments to kill it, all of them ended in failure. After receiving your order to modify, we changed our strategy and carried out all kinds of research on this special undyings such as dissecting and slicing. In the end, we found a kind of liquid in its body. After that, we sealed it and waited for the Dragon King to return before making a decision." Liquid? Li Zhong paused for a moment. His eyes were bloodshot as he growled almost hysterically, "What kind of liquid did you extract? You actually hid it from me? If I hadn't been here every day, you would never have told me." The Minister of Works let Li Zhong grab his collar and growl. After Li Zhong calmed down a little, he gave his deputy a look and continued, "Yes, I didn't intend to tell you about our experiment. This is just in case. You know the nature of the Ministry of Works. Once we start work, we will never leave the Ministry of Works before we have a thorough research result. But you are different. You are the king of the northern frontier. You have your own things to do. We have no authority to force you to stay in the Ministry of Works to keep this secret." Chapter 991. I can temporarily hand the matters at hand over to Li Xian to handle, so, can you tell me now? Li Zhong slowly loosened his grip on the minister's collar, and the chaotic aura on his body gradually calmed down. His abnormalities were basically all due to stress, and since the Ministry of Works had already produced results, he did not need to feel so much pressure anymore. The black water of the underworld. The Minister of Works suddenly opened his mouth, interrupting Li Zhong's words. Li Zhong's pupils suddenly shrank, and the aura on his body that had gradually calmed down with much difficulty actually showed signs of becoming chaotic again. The Minister of Works was shocked, and quickly realized that this king of the northern frontier was about to go crazy. "Don't panic, listen to what I have to say, but remember what I have to say. After knowing all this, before the Dragon King returns, I will not let you leave the Ministry of Works. I'm sorry, this is a serious matter, and if you insist on leaving, then I will have to resort to emergency measures and kill you right here and now." The Minister of Works stretched out his hand to pat Li Zhong's gradually tensing muscles and suddenly said, "Actually, you have all overlooked one thing, and that is the timing of the appearance of the Undying, or rather, because of the terrifying threat that the Undying brought, you have all subconsciously overlooked the matters of the past, and thought that the Undying was another matter, and not an extension of the previous matter. And Lei Fan, Luo Su and the likes, had used this timing to deliberately lead you all in the wrong direction and sank deeper and deeper." Overlooked? Some time in the past? Lei Fan Luo Su? Deliberately led? A series of key words flashed across Li Zhong's mind. Very quickly Li Zhong reacted and said in a hoarse voice, "What you mean is, the Undying was actually not created by Lei Fan and the existence behind him to cause chaos in the northern frontier, but a certain matter in the northern frontier that was not handled properly, and thus caused trouble in the future. Instead, Lei Fan and Luo Su used it as their protection and led our investigation in the wrong direction, so this matter is the elixir of immortality?" Yes, the appearance of the Undying is indeed a consequence of the elixir of immortality, and this is the result of your investigation being wrong. Back then, the Dragon King had given the Ministry of Works some samples of the elixir of immortality for research, and according to our research, the so-called core of the elixir of immortality is actually a kind of liquid similar to the Dragon King's nether realm black water, and the appearance of the elixir is actually a kind of special metal, and the purpose of its existence is to imprison the core of the elixir of immortality, because our investigation showed that although the liquid in the core of the elixir of immortality is similar to the nether realm black water, the former has an unimaginable activity, and rather than saying that it is a kind of special liquid, it is better to say that it is a kind of special life form. On the other hand, the nether realm black water that Lord Dragon King left in the northern frontier, although it can also form all kinds of undying creatures, in the end, it is a dead object, and if there is no external force to activate it, it is really just a pool of stagnant water that will eat everything that enters it. And those who consume the elixir of immortality will gradually develop all kinds of violent, crazy, and hateful negative emotions, and they need to constantly consume the elixir of immortality to suppress these negative emotions, or else they will die an extremely painful death. Your investigation stopped here, and you believed that the Sky Demon used the elixir of immortality to control part of the officials in the northern frontier, and force them to work for him. Furthermore, in your subsequent cleanup operation, you rescued and killed all the people who consumed the elixir of immortality. Think again, the place where you buried the bodies of those who consumed the elixir of immortality is today's forest of hungry ghosts and the plains of earth. right? After thinking about this, it is naturally not difficult to associate the so-called undying with the origins of this. The Minister of Works sneered and said, I believe that the so-called undying is actually a side effect of the elixir of immortality. Without continuing to consume the elixir of immortality to maintain the activity of the mysterious liquid, the people who consume the elixir of immortality will naturally be completely dominated by all kinds of negative emotions, and thus turn into monsters. In addition, the elixir of immortality has a characteristic similar to the nether realm black water, so what appears in front of you is an undying monster. Hearing this, Li Zhong had a complicated expression on his face. After all, the elixir of immortality was an extremely evil thing. Other than the initial use of the elixir of immortality to lure out the other elixir of immortality, the rest of the elixir of immortality and the elixir of immortality had been dealt with by Li Zhong as soon as possible. He did not even think about what kind of trouble it would cause in the future. However, from the looks of it now, the undying that ran rampant in the northern frontier today were most likely the people who consumed the elixir of immortality and turned into monsters. No, this doesn't make sense. Li Zhong quickly shook his head again, biting his lip and said, even if your explanation can explain the origin of the undying, how do you explain Lei Fan and the batch of undying that first appeared possessing spiritual intelligence? Then have you ever thought about why Lei Fan did not hesitate to expose his own existence and his trump card, Luo Su, in order to save those undying that possessed spiritual intelligence, despite knowing that we are unable to kill the undying? Why is it that those undying that they painstakingly saved never appeared again, and instead, a large number of undying with low spiritual intelligence appeared? Is it because you can't think of the reason behind this, or is it because you don't dare to think of the reason behind this? Actually, you are very afraid, aren't you, Li Zhong? You are afraid that when you were playing games with Lei Fan and Luo Su, you made several mistakes in succession, which led to the current disaster that has befallen the northern frontier. If you can't think of it, I don't mind telling you because the amount of the elixir of immortality is extremely limited. That black water behind the scenes had initially gathered all the elixir of immortality and created a batch of highly intelligent undying. Using this as the foundation, he created the Northern Restoration Society to secretly sabotage the northern frontier. Under the joint efforts of all of you, the Northern Restoration Society was destroyed, Lei Fan was exposed, Luo Su was exposed, and you even captured those undying that first appeared and brought them back to the northern frontier, didn't you? In fact, the activity in this liquid will be constantly depleted, and when the activity level is extremely high, the transformed monsters will also reveal spiritual intelligence that is not inferior to ordinary people. However, the higher the activity level, the faster it will be depleted. Therefore, after accomplishing his goal, the existence behind the scenes must retrieve the first undying, kill them, and extract the elixir of immortality from their bodies, and use it to create more undying, which is the various low-level undying that we faced later on. The Minister of Works reached out his hand and knocked on the glass window in front of him, saying coldly, this first undying was like that. At this moment, its spiritual intelligence has degenerated to the level of a 3-year-old child, and it can no longer communicate with us. At the same time, it has shown an extremely strong desire to attack, so I had no choice but to seal it away. Chapter 992. The Immortals were just a group of people whose consciousness had been wiped away. Their bodies were driven by a special liquid similar to the black water of the underworld. That was why they had the desire to attack like wild beasts and had the characteristic of being unkillable. It turned out that from the beginning to the end, the so-called Immortals were just mistakes caused by a moment of negligence. Instead, they were used by the other party as an existence like a protective umbrella. It had always involved the attention of the entire Northern Frontier Intelligence Agency, constantly leading them away from the truth. I'm such a king idiot, Li Zhong cursed in his heart. But very quickly Li Zhong raised his eyebrows and said, but even if you explain it this way, logically speaking, there is no problem. But how do you explain Lei Fan? He had clearly been killed by the cultivators of the sect of the Blood God. I have personally verified his corpse. But now, not only has Lei Fan been resurrected as an immortal, he has also stirred up a storm in the northern frontier, not allowing us to have a moment of peace. I never said that Lei Fan was not an immortal. The Minister of Works sighed and tilted his head to the side to say, what I mean is, the Immortals are existences similar to medicine men. Lei Fan is essentially no different from the other Immortals. It's just that we don't know how much of the elixir of immortality the other party still has in their hands. So, they can continuously feed Lei Fan medicine to maintain the activity of the elixir of immortality in his body, so that he will not degenerate into a low-level immortal without spiritual intelligence. As for the immortals under our control, because they have not taken medicine for a very long time, the activity of the elixir of immortality in their bodies has continuously turned them into monsters. Li Zhong sucked in a breath of cold air. His eyes flashed and he asked doubtfully, "According to what you said, does it mean that the one who is hiding behind the scenes and making use of the immortals to plot against us is still the Sky Demon?" "It's possible but not likely." The Minister of Works clasped his hands together, yawned and said, "If the Sky Demon is behind all this, then he should know about the situation on the northern frontier. As long as he launches a fierce attack while we are divided to defend against the undead, our front line will soon collapse. Especially since the Styx creatures left behind by the Dragon King are almost all fighting against the undead, the threat to him is further reduced. At this time he chose not to attack the northern frontier, but to turn around and attack the south. Isn't this clearly giving us a chance to breathe? Furthermore." After yawning, the Minister of Works opened his bloodshot eyes and said, "When we completely dissected the undead, we found that there are no organs or bones in the undead's body. They are more like a kind of monster with only flesh and blood. Besides instinct, they don't even have any emotions. The Sky Demon can't possess such an existence. In other words, if the northern frontier falls and becomes a paradise for the undead, this area will have no value to the Sky Demon." "That's an interesting way to put it." Suddenly Lin Yuan's voice sounded behind the two. The Minister of Works and Li Zhong turned around with a look of surprise. The Ministry of Works was the department with the highest level of secrecy in the entire northern frontier. Besides Li Zhong and Lin Yuan, no one else had the authority to know any information about the Ministry of Works. And the location of the Ministry of Works was not fixed. Just like the safe house set up by the Imperial Secret Service, the Ministry of Works would move every once in a while, and after the move, the members of the Nightbusters would disguise themselves as Ministry of Works personnel to continue the operation. And other than not researching any secrets, the fake Ministry of Works was no different from the Ministry of Works. So if one wanted to find the real location of the Ministry of Works, unless Li Zhong or Lin Yuan took the initiative to tell them, they would find nothing. Previously, Luo Su had been trying to find out information about the Ministry of Works, but the results were not great. If not for the undead being sent to the Ministry of Works for research, Lei Fan and Luo Su's operation would not have endangered the Ministry of Works at all. Lin Yuan's body floated in the air in front of the glass window. He glanced at the undead who were wrapped up like mummies, and his gaze was slightly solemn. At the beginning, he also thought that these undead were the handiwork of some almighty person related to the underworld. But if such an existence really appeared, the vacant position of the underworld king would immediately have an owner. After all, the heavenly sovereign had already appeared. If another underworld king appeared, the Sky Martial world would be able to create 3 realms, and make itself into a complete world. So the will of the world chose Lin Yuan because Lin Yuan had a higher possibility of becoming the underworld king. It was not that Lin Yuan was the only choice. And after eliminating the first possibility, there were other methods to transform the Sky Martial world into the underworld. That meant that the existence behind the scenes was very likely to be a god of the underworld, and had used the Nether River ancestors' Nether Blood Sea or something similar. But the appearance of a god of the underworld from another world in the Sky Martial world was tantamount to a declaration of war against the will of the world. Even if it had a supreme divine ability, it would have to first subdue the will of the world, or else it would not be able to use the underworld method. That was why Lin Yuan had always been suspicious. These undyings that had suddenly appeared were very likely to be existences similar to medicine men. Because the first batch of undyings that had appeared did not conform to the 3 types of undyings: corpse, bone, and soul. They were more like cultivators that could not be killed by conventional methods. The northern frontier, the Sky Demon, and even the untainted desolation creatures were just pawns in the hands of the other party. I'm beginning to wonder about this person's identity. Lin Yuan narrowed his eyes and muttered, "He can mobilize the members of the Pure Fox and Yusu Fox clan, and also use the Nether Blood Sea to cultivate medicine men similar to the untainted. He doesn't even care about untainted desolation creatures like Hamba, but he is not an untainted desolation creature. So how did this guy know about the secrets of the untainted desolation world? Even I don't know how to use the Nether Blood Sea. I'm afraid that other than the Blood River ancestor, only the Sky Demon God knows how to use it. He is an existence on the same level as Hongjun without the support of the Heavenly Tao." "That's right, That mysterious existence was most likely not an untainted desolation creature. Because with such a terrifying existence surrounding him, even if Lin Yuan had the will of the world and the origin of the heavenly Tao to protect him, he would still be ruthlessly bitten off a piece of flesh by the other party. If his reaction was not fast enough, it was not impossible for him to be killed by the other party's scheme. Based on this premise, if this mysterious existence was an untainted desolation creature, then when they were in the endless sea, Hongjun would not have sent a consciousness across the endless space in an attempt to kill Lin Yuan. This huge threat came from another world, but knew the secrets of the untainted desolation world. Chapter 993. If that outer god is not a primitive creature, but knows the secret that only the sky demon god can know, I think there is only one possibility left. Although it is unlikely, didn't you say in your previous life that after eliminating all the impossibilities, the remaining answer will definitely be the truth no matter how unbelievable it is? Amazing Tongtian, you are amazing. As Lin Yuan muttered to himself, a line of words slowly appeared in Lin Yuan's mind. Lin Yuan was confused. However, the doubt only lasted for a moment, and a look of realization flashed across Lin Yuan's eyes. As everyone knew, sect leader Tongtian, who was one of the Sanqing sects, respected education regardless of background. During the God's investiture tribulation, the Ren school and the Chan school looked down on the Jie school, thinking that the subordinates of sect leader Tongtian were all hairy and ovalized. Although the three sects had expressed their participation in the God's investiture tribulation at the same time, the Ren school and the Chan school had joined forces to target the disciples of the Jie school several times. Sect leader Tongtian, who was angry, did not hesitate to fight with the Heavenly Lord Yuanshi and the Heavenly Lord Daoda, who were also Sanqing sects. He did not even regret the destruction of the Jie school. Especially in the last battle of the 10,000 Immortals formation, except for the incongruence Divine Mother, who was not tainted by the tribulation aura, who was ordered by sect leader Tongtian to wait for an opportunity to escape unscathed. The rest of the disciples either died or were taken away as mounts. It could be said that their fates were extremely miserable. However, speaking of which, it was natural for the Jie school to be destroyed. After all, among the three sects, only the Jie school did not have a magic treasure that could suppress fate. Moreover, the Grandmaster of Heaven had used the power of the Jie school to fight against the Ren school and the Chan school at the same time. Even the Western sect had joined in the fun. They had sent away countless disciples of the Jie school in the chaotic battle to strengthen the foundation of the Western sect. Among the 6 sages under Hongjun, except for Nuwa who had always stood aloof from worldly affairs, almost all of them had participated in the encirclement of the sect leader of Tongtian. As an indestructible sage, the sect leader of Tongtian should have known that his defeat was inevitable when the immortal slaying sword formation was seized. Otherwise, he would not have let the incongruence Divine Mother escape in advance. Since he knew that he would lose, it was not impossible that he did not know that the long-ears Dingguang Immortal had already become a traitor and was unwilling to wave the six-soul banner at the cost of his own soul being destroyed. However, he still did not replace him and insisted on letting the long-ears Dingguang Immortal wield the six-soul banner, laying the groundwork for his own defeat. This kind of behavior was tantamount to hammering the nail into his coffin. However, judging from the abnormal behavior of the system during this period of time, the sect leader of Tongtian might not have really lost. Sanqing, as the supreme deity in the history of Taoism, could be said to be the twin brothers of Sanqing. It was impossible for there to be an unsolvable death between the three of them, especially the leader of the Ren sect. He had always been the leader of Sanqing, the big brother of the Tongtian and the primeval lord of Tongtian. Even if his 2 younger brothers quarreled with each other, the Grand Lord of Tongtian would play the role of the peacemaker. The war between the Jie sect and the Chan sect was because the disciples of the primeval lord of Tongtian had repeatedly injured and even killed the disciples of the Jie sect, and even humiliated them. The sect leader of Tongtian had said to the primeval lord of Tongtian, "Senior brother primeval lord of Tongtian, your disciples of the Chan sect do not care about the brotherhood of fellow disciples, repeatedly injuring the disciples of the Jie sect, and humiliating the disciples of the Jie sect. Aren't you saying that I am also a beast? If I am a beast, then what are you, the primeval lord of Tongtian?" Therefore, because of the physical and verbal conflicts between the disciples of the Chan sect and the Jie sect, the sect leader of Tongtian and the primeval lord of Tongtian completely broke up. In the process, the Grand Lord of Tongtian did not show the appearance of a big brother. Instead, he took sides and led the disciples of the Ren sect to join forces with the Chan sect, and directly destroyed the Jie sect. What was the reason that made Sanqing, who was like a brother of the primeval lord of Tongtian, break up? Was it really because the Grand Lord of Tongtian and the primeval Lord of Tongtian loved their disciples and did not want their disciples to be immortals who were ordered by others on the list, so they joined forces to fight against the disciples of the Jie sect? What was the reason that the Grand Lord of Tongtian did not even persuade them, but directly joined forces with the primeval Lord of Tongtian to bully him? Was it really because of the non-discrimination education of the Grand Lord of Tongtian that stimulated the Grand Lord of Tongtian and the primeval Lord of Tongtian? Thinking of this, Lin Yuan suddenly had an idea and murmured, "It's like this? It's actually like this." After the battle between the three sects, the Jie sect was destroyed. The sect leader of Tongtian led the remaining disciples to fight and retreat. He once said, "How can I have the face to control the Azure Palace after this defeat? Anyway, I will not rest until I work. Now I will return to the palace and establish the earth, water, fire, and wind again. Let's change the world." After that, the sect leader of Tongtian was summoned by Hongjun and given a fatal red pill. From then on he rarely appeared. However, thinking about it, Hongjun's pill did not kill the sect leader of Tongtian. The reason why the sect leader of Tongtian rarely appeared was probably because he had already established the earth, wind, water, and fire and formed his own world. After forming his own world, the world would definitely not be perfect. Saints like Hongjun could not descend into it. Even if the world was perfected later, the sect leader of Tongtian, who was supported by the heavenly Tao of the new world, would no longer be an existence that could be controlled by Hongjun. Almost all the big shots in the untainted land were the gods of creation. Perhaps they were stimulated by the fact that the sect leader of Tongtian had successfully broken free from the identity of a prisoner. The Grand Supreme and Premier joined hands to destroy the Jie sect. Except for some unlucky ones, most of the disciples of the Jie sect did not die. They either became immortals on the list of deification, were captured as mounts, or were transported by the Western sect. Anyway, most of them survived. Obviously, this was not in line with the sect leader of Tongtian's posture of taking out the Six Souls banner and fighting with the 10,000 Immortals formation. Therefore, the Grand Supreme and Premier were actually hiding from Hongjun. They secretly helped the sect leader of Tongtian to complete some plans by sending the disciples of the Jie sect to the list of calamities. They made the sect leader of Tongtian establish the earth, wind, water, and fire and form his own world. From then on, he broke free from the identity of a prisoner. Just like how countless creatures of the untainted land had used the great tribulation of heaven and earth to break the untainted land several times to escape, there was no difference between the two things in essence. They were both trying to get rid of Hongjuan's control. Thinking about it this way, most of the disciples of the Jie sect survived. The sudden betrayal of the long-eared Dingguang immortal who was in charge of the Six Souls banner made sense. The three brothers were acting from the beginning. They did not mean to fight to the death at all. However, after the lesson of the sect leader of Tongtian, Hongjun was obviously on guard. After establishing the journey to the west, he set up the theory of yin and yang and the five virtues, planned to kill Hao Yin, and supported Zhang Biren to become the Jade Emperor. Everything went smoothly. After that, the secular world was derived until the Tang dynasty. The Western sect suddenly intervened and completely shattered the Wukong in the Grand Supreme's heart. The Grand Supreme was ruthlessly beaten by the Grand Supreme. Therefore he could not transcend the untainted land and was still a prisoner under Hongjun. Throughout the untainted land, since Hongjun merged with the Tao of Heaven, the only mighty person who got rid of the identity of a prisoner was the sect leader of Tongtian. Amazing. Chapter 994. If the truth that had been buried by history was true, then the origin of the outer god would be clear. Most likely he came from the world created by Tongtian. After all, with Sanqing's identity, he knew the use of the Nether Blood Sea formed by Pangu's navel and how to use it. Even the Nether River Patriarch, the so-called master of the Nether River, would know much more about it. No, you said Tongtian earlier. Could it be that Tongtian's real body is also in this world? Lin Yuan's heart suddenly moved, and his eyes became strange. The Qinwu world was not a complete world. The strength of a true god was the ceiling of this world. In other words, most creatures born in the untainted land were unable to set foot in this world. So far Lin Yuan had seen the untainted land creatures. In the history of the untainted land, he had believed in someone he should not have believed in. In addition, he was unlucky and was chased by the demon master Kuanping and the Nether River Patriarch. Not only did he lose his physical body, but if not for the protection of the 99 soul-scattering gourd, even his primordial spirit would have been lost. An unknown Luoyu. Even if he had displayed extremely powerful strength, he was still a famous existence in the Classic of Mountains and Seas. Everyone knew that rather than saying that the Classic of Mountains and Seas was a book that recorded ancient strange beasts, it was more accurate to say that the Classic of Mountains and Seas was a book that recorded the location of precious ingredients that ancient humans had sorted out. It was extremely valuable. Most of the Classic of Mountains and Seas would have a sentence at the end of the introduction of the strange beasts. How do you eat it? Hamba's strength was extremely terrifying. At present, Hamba definitely had the strength of a true god. Even if the world was repaired, Hamba still had the combat strength of a golden immortal in the untainted land. These three creatures of the untainted land could not be said to be weak. After all, even in the martial arts world during the Dharma ending period, those who could make a name for themselves were considered heroes. Moreover, in the untainted land where Daluo was everywhere and Tai was as common as dogs, those who could leave their names behind were not to be trifled with. Not to mention that Hamba relied on his background. Although this was a factor in terms of battle results, even the great formation of bitter wind and bitter rain, which could trap even the winged dragon, collapsed when encountering Hamba as if it had met its nemesis. This was enough to prove Hamba's strength. It must be mentioned here that the so-called Tai Golden Immortal and Daluo Golden Immortal had no difference in terms of realms. They were the next stage of the Golden Immortal. If one had to find the difference between the two, Daluo Golden Immortal referred to the disciples of the three religions, the Western religious sect, or the disciples of some powerful sections. Daluo Golden Immortal was a disciple of the three religions, the Western religion, or the disciples of some powerful sections. Daluo Golden Immortal. This was the only difference between the two titles. Of course, in theory, Daluo Golden Immortal with a professional background was stronger than Tai Golden Immortal. Therefore, in some web novels, it was not a problem to set Daluo Golden Immortal as the advancement of Tai Golden Immortal. After all, Daluo Golden Immortal was already considered a genius when he or she reached the realm of Tai Golden Immortal. But if one wanted to go further, he or she had to find a powerful sect or cave and rely on the title of a professional background. Only in this way could he or she learn the cultivation methods and corresponding magic arts of a higher realm. Therefore, if one wanted to become a sage to be or even a sage, he or she really had to change from a Daluo Golden Immortal to a professional background, just like many actors who used to be minor roles would choose to study in a film academy after they became famous. Therefore, Lin Yuan had never doubted the possibility that there was a limit to the capacity of the heaven martial world. Otherwise, what he saw in the boundless sea would not have been as simple as a projection of Hongjuan's consciousness. But sect leader Tongtian. Well, sect leader Tongtian's strength was probably not at the level of a sage. After all, the so-called similar difference between a heavenly sage and a real sage was limited to the untainted world. A real sage who had achieved Daluo origin was still a sage after leaving the untainted world, while a heavenly sage could be said to be nothing after leaving the untainted world. After all, Goddess Nviwa had obtained boundless merit after she created human beings. Throughout the myths, the status of human beings had always been very awkward. Gods and Buddhas all over the world treated human beings as leeks to harvest the power of incense. Even some famous monsters liked to eat human beings to improve their cultivation. But after careful consideration, human beings seemed to be an irreplaceable existence in the eyes of these mighty figures. No matter how harsh they were to human beings, these mighty figures would not sit and watch human beings perish. From this, it could be seen that the merit of Goddess Nviwa, who created human beings, was probably not inferior to that of Yinglong, the descendant of the divine dragon. Therefore, although Goddess Nviwa did not achieve Daluo origin, after all, she had become a sage through merit, which was no different from a real sage. And the origin of Sanqing was not simple. Many legendary Sanqing were transformed by Pangu's primordial spirit. Although they were not born as sages, they were the strongest ones in the untainted world in terms of foundation and talent. Only the sky demon could suppress them. As one of the Sanqing sect leader Tongtian had left the untainted world and lost his identity as a heavenly sage. But after all, he had his own world to support him. His strength was probably even greater than when he was in the untainted world. Especially in his world, his power was almost the same as that of Hongjun, who was in harmony with the way of heaven. Even if he went to other worlds without the strength of a sage, any one of the Sanqing would have the strength of a sage to be. Sect leader Tongtian is indeed in this world. But it is also possible to say that he is not here. You know the saying of one Qi into Sanqing, right? According to the memory of your previous life, some people say that one qi into Sanqing refers to Pangu's death after the creation of the world, and his primordial spirit transformed into Sanqing and reappeared. But according to the oldest book about one qi into Sanqing in your world, the so-called one qi into Sanqing refers to the deification period. When the Grand Elder and sect leader Tongtian fought, they used this skill to transform one qi into Taiqing, Yuqing and Shangqing. Therefore it is called one qi into Sanqing. Not only the Grand Elder knew this skill, but sect leader Tongtian also knew it. But sect leader Tongtian did not use this skill to transform into Sanqing, but himself in the past, present and future. You can see him as a young sect leader Tongtian, a middle-aged sect leader Tongtian, an old sect leader Tongtian and the original sect leader Tongtian. The one in this world is one of this Sanqing, transformed by sect leader Tongtian, but you don't know which one it is. The system replied slowly. Past, present and future? Lin Yuan was slightly stunned and asked subconsciously, the Western religious sect has 3 Buddhas, past, present and future. Are they also? My young host, haven't you heard of the saying that Buddhism is Taoism? Even the name of the abbot of Buddhism was borrowed from Taoism. Later on, people thought that it was exclusive to Buddhism after it was called so many times. In addition, the wooden fish also originated from Taoism. Chapter 995. Lin Yuan was silent for a while, but soon he felt relieved. After all, in the history of the untainted land, the 6 sages were all Hongjuan's disciples. Since the Grand Elder and Tongtian could create Sanqing, it seemed that the Western religious sect, which was extremely shameless in the history of the untainted land, could learn this skill and take it as their own. It seemed that it was acceptable. In the end, the so-called qi into Sanqing was just like Hongjuan's 3 separations technique. In addition, I only know that an incarnation of Tongtian exists in this world, but I don't know what he is up to. However, since you are going to the untainted world to fight against Hongjun, you will have to deal with this incarnation of Tongtian sooner or later. Let me tell you. Don't trust Tongtian just because you are on the same side as him. Otherwise you won't even know how you die. After all, even that guy has suffered losses from Tongtian. You don't need to worry about Tongtian. What's more, Tongtian's real body will definitely stay in his own world like Hongjun and won't step out easily. What's more, the strength of his real body is not something that the current heaven martial world can bear. Therefore you'll have to face his incarnation in the future, but you have to know which incarnation you're facing. If it's the young Tongtian with your cultivation at that time, you might not have to fear him because he's the weakest, at most comparable to a fairy immortal. After leaving the untainted land and losing the support of the way of heaven, he may only have the strength of the peak of the earthly immortal realm, which means he'll enter the realm of true God, but he's just a step away from the deity realm. If you can reach the limit of this world, you won't have to fear him. However, the young Tongtian's mind is the most cunning, so you have to be careful of being tricked by him. In theory, the middle-aged Tongtian has the strongest cultivation. When I was in the untainted land, I saw with my own eyes that the middle-aged Hongjuan's chi power was comparable to that of a sage to be, and there were records of him killing primordial creatures of the untainted land more than once with the help of the way of heaven. Even now, he may have the strength of a golden immortal. You can treat him as Hamba in his peak state. He's not good at scheming, but he's temperamental. If you provoke him, he may even suppress you directly. Finally, the old Hongjun. His cultivation is probably not as high as that of the middle-aged Hongjun. He usually has a cheerful and kind face to confuse those who don't know his background. But the old Tongtian's incarnation of Tongtian was the most unfathomable one. Basically, except that guy, all the people who had seen the old Tongtian's emotional fluctuations were all dead. This is the most important hint. Listen carefully. If you provoke one of the incarnations of Tongtian's Sanqing, you'd better kill him as soon as possible. Don't let the other 2 incarnations come to join him, because the incarnations of Sanqing can merge with each other. Once they merge, their strength will be almost the same as that of the original Tongtian within 30 minutes. If the original Tongtian arrives, it means that you have to deal with 2 sages at the same time. When the system displayed these words, it also made 3 different projections in Lin Yuan's sea of consciousness. The first projection was of a man wearing a blood-red brocade robe. A black jade pendant hung from his waist, and 6 swords floated behind him. He didn't look like a great cultivator with a terrifying cultivation base. Instead, he looked more like a young man from a noble family in the mortal world. The second projection was of a middle-aged man like the first projection. Although he was no longer extraordinarily handsome with red lips and white teeth, he could still be regarded as handsome. His temperament was less roguish and vigorous than that of the first projection, but he was more calm and composed. The blood-red brocade robe was also replaced by a white robe with a dark green scholar's robe. The black jade pendant on his waist was replaced by a black jade thumb ring on his right thumb. The swords behind his back disappeared and turned into an unopened bamboo scroll. He looked more like a learned scholar than a cultivator. And the third projection, it was an old man with white hair and a white beard with a face full of wrinkles. He was wearing a brown Taoist robe over a purple luxurious robe. He sat on a lotus throne and held an ink-black jade rui in his hand. Looking at it carefully, one could see that its divine light was restrained, and there was no trace of lethargy. What is that ink-black jade? Lin Yuan's eyes narrowed slightly as he asked in his mind with a puzzled face. Apart from their appearances, the only similarity between the three incarnations of sect master Tong Tian was that they all had a piece of ink-black jade. It was just that this piece of ink-black jade had turned into a jade pendant, a thumb ring and a jade rui respectively. However, when similar things appeared in different forms, it was hard not to think that there might be some secrets behind it. World Fragment. The three projections I showed you are the records of Tong Tian using the qi into Sanqing in the Eldritch world. I can't be sure whether he has changed his appearance or not, but the only thing I can be sure of is that both his original body and his incarnations have a piece of ink-black jade on them. It is a treasure that Tong Tian obtained when he went out to explore a different world. It was also because of this item that he proudly called himself a world and got rid of that guy's control. After all, Taishang had done something similar before, and so did many other creatures of the Eldritch world. However, they did not have such a treasure. Even if they did create a new world, it would be a small world under the jurisdiction of the Eldritch world. Let alone getting rid of that guy's control, it would even further strengthen that guy's strength. The ink-black jade on Tongtian's incarnation of Sanqing should be the product of his creation. After he created his own world, he kept expanding it, then cut off a part of it and turned it into ink-black jade for his incarnation of Sanqing. Because of this ink-black jade, the three incarnations can borrow the power of the heavenly Tao from the Tongtian realm. Although it is not strong and has a time limit, the power they can unleash in an instant is enough to defeat opponents who are used to the incarnation's strength. Lin Yuan. Using the treasures he obtained from the outside world as a blueprint, he could create a new world and even expand it. Although Lin Yuan didn't know the specific operation method, he knew that expanding a world required a lot of effort. After successfully expanding the world he established, the sect leader of Tong Tian was so bold that he could even personally cut off 3 of the pieces and make them into black jade for his incarnation equipment, so that his incarnation could kill strong enemies and escape safely no matter when and where it was. In other words, Tong Tian, this mischievous guy, might be much stronger than what he had shown in the past. Chapter 996. So what we can be sure of is that Luo Yu Hanba, Taoist Red Cloud, Tong Tian sect leader, and a few others who have yet to appear but are most likely members of the recipe. Yes, perhaps there are also members of the Fox clan, Pure Fox and Yusu, as well as countless Sky Demon. As for those who are not natives of the Jianghu world, there is me, and the one behind the scenes who is very likely to be an outer god from the Heavenspan realm. Lin Yuan lightly clicked his tongue and muttered, if it was just a group of stragglers who escaped from the great desolate world, it wouldn't be a big deal. But now the key is that Tong Tian sect leader's incarnation is in this world, and a god from the Heavenspan realm has also come to this world. In addition, there is the mysterious dragonization route in the underwater secret realm. So, I'm afraid that there is a big secret in the Jianghu world. What kind of almighty existence was Tong Tian sect leader? Whether it was age or cultivation base, as long as one reached Tong Tian sect leader's level, even if it seemed like he casually placed a chess piece, it was possible that at a critical moment yin and yang would be reversed and the world would be turned upside down. Even Xianzi was like this, let alone the Grandmaster of Heaven. This time, the Grandmaster of Heaven placed a piece on one of his incarnations. I suddenly thought of a possibility. The projection released by the system suddenly disappeared, and even the words were somewhat shaky, as if it had discovered something incredible. I thought of it too. Lin Yuan was silent for a moment, then said in his mind, Hongjuan's origin could be said to be unfathomable. Some people classified him as one of the 3,000 ancient demon gods, while others said that Hongjuan's original body was just a cricket. Of course, there were also people who said that Hongjun was the world's first dragon. But without exception, Hongjun had cultivated to become a saint, and was not innately powerful like the 3,000 ancient demon gods. For existences like Hongjun who had reached the peak step by step, ordinary small matters would not alarm him at all. It was hard to say how many hosts the system had, but at this stage the system definitely had the fewest hosts. In the past, there were even existences like Luo Ho and Yi Zhu who could directly confront Hong Jun. But even so, Hong Jun stayed in the great desolate world and did not prepare to kill Luo Ho and Yi Zhu in advance. This was not because Hong Jun's strength was not enough, but because of the confidence of an expert. He thought that Luo Ho and Yi Zhu could not threaten him, so he did not bother to care. So, why did Hong Jun send a projection of his consciousness into the Jianghu world to try to kill him directly? Hong Jun's strength. He was not a big threat to Hong Jun. To all. Hong Jun, he did not. He was not to Jun was. He was or. Unless, that guy's attack on you is unprecedented, so my guess is that he calculated his own death tribulation and followed it to the martial heaven world in you. But thinking about it carefully, is it possible that his death tribulation is in the martial heaven world but not you? Is it possible that his death tribulation is in the martial heaven world but not you? Is it possible that his death tribulation is in the martial heaven world? After Hong Jun stole the way of heaven, it was separated from the original part of the way of heaven. For countless years, it had been cultivating strong people, trying to return to the untainted land and regain control of the way of heaven. It had seen countless monstrous geniuses and strange people. Among these countless monstrous geniuses, Lin Yuan could only be regarded as a maverick, because he had almost completely abandoned the previously planned cultivation plan, just like those demonic beasts who were unwilling to follow the footsteps of their ancestors despite having a bloodline inheritance. They had to walk a path that was more powerful than their ancestors. If such an existence did not fall due to some accident, sooner or later, he would become a powerful figure. Lin Yuan was like that. Although he had abandoned the powerful path that had been planned before, he still grew at a terrifying speed. That was why it thought that he was the most likely host to defeat Hong Jun. But it felt that it was only its opinion. If Hong Jun also felt the same, then it was too strange. Luo Ho and Er Zhu had not moved Hong Jun in the past, let alone Lin Yuan, who was not even an immortal. So, the biggest possibility was that Hong Jun's death trial was indeed in the Jianghu world, but it was not Lin Yuan, the host of the system. It was the Tong Tian who had joined forces with Taishang and Yuanshi to defeat Hong Jun during the investiture of God's tribulation. Thus, he was able to transcend the untainted land and establish his own world. After all, a simple comparison would show that Lin Yuan and the Tong Tian were together. No matter how one looked at it, the latter was a bigger threat to Hong Jun. I don't think so. Lin Yuan thought for a moment and made his own judgment. Then he thought with a serious face, first, the Jianghu world is indeed a broken world, but it has not evolved into the will of the heavenly Tao, yet it already has the terrifying strength to contend with you. This is the first anomaly. Also, I have not seen the other untainted land creatures that appeared in the Jianghu world, but Red Cloud Taoist, Hanba, and even Luo Yu were all existences that left their names in the history of the untainted land. I don't believe that they chose to stay in such a world because they did not want to fight with that guy anymore. With their experience, it is impossible that they did not know that the world would repair itself. If they stayed here, they would not be able to take a step forward. Once the world is repaired and the untainted land army comes, they would not be able to resist at all. This is the second anomaly. At this point Lin Yuan paused. His gaze swept across the Ministry of Works minister, Li Zhong, and the nearby Ministry of Works members. Then he added in his heart, the untainted land's path of cultivation started from the beginning. Later on that guy proved his Tao and created the immortal path of cultivation. It was a natural development. The Jianghu world's path of cultivation was created by countless gods and Buddhas outside the gate of heaven. They cast down countless paths of cultivation and various spiritual seeds. This is a cultural invasion from the outside. However, those invaders did not occupy the Jianghu world. They only left behind their inheritance and hurriedly left this world. This is the third anomaly. Anomaly? Interesting. Continue speaking. As Lin Yuan's points were mentioned one by one, the system's interest was piqued. I'm not too sure if there are other anomalies, but what I can be sure of is that when there is an anomaly, there must be a demon. There must be some secrets in the Jianghu world that we do not know about. And this secret is most likely known by the Tongtian sect leader, but he is not clear about it. Therefore, he left an incarnation in the Jianghu world in order to find out the secret of this world. Based on this hypothesis, Red Cloud Taoist, Hanba, and the other untainted land creatures might have found out about the secret of this world through their own channels. Chapter 997. Don't forget that Red Cloud Taoist was also a disciple that guy thought highly of. If it weren't for Urshi of the West, the 6 saints would be Sanqing, Nuwa, Kunpeng and Red Cloud. Urshi of the West would have nothing to do with them. Although Red Cloud was a nice guy, as the way of heaven of the untainted land, you must know how bad the environment in the untainted land is. After confirming that Taoist Red Cloud was a nice guy, we realized that Taoist Red Cloud was also a scheming person. After all, other creatures in the untainted land would not create such a character for themselves. Therefore, it was not difficult to think that it was not Urshi of the West who set Taoist Red Cloud up. Instead, it was Taoist Red Cloud who set Taoist Red Cloud up. He set Urshi of the West as a prisoner, then destroyed his own body with the help of Kunpeng and escaped to the world of heaven martial arts. Amba was the same. As the daughter of the Yellow Emperor, she was the favored daughter of the heavens. No matter how she was demonized later on, it was undeniable that she was the only one other than Yinglong who didn't hold a position in the heavenly court and became an immortal who was bound and controlled. From this, it's not hard to see how much the Yellow Emperor loved his daughter. Hamba's escape from the untainted land was most likely part of the Yellow Emperor's plan. After all, he was one of the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors. He was a terrifying existence who ruled the world and was crowned with the title of emperor when he was immortal. I don't know how powerful the Yellow Emperor was when he was at his peak, but he definitely wouldn't send his beloved daughter to a dead world. Then what was the reason that made Red Cloud Taoist and the Yellow Emperor choose the Jianghu world at the same time? What was the reason that made Tong Tian, who escaped from Hongjun, leave an incarnation in the Jianghu world? Those gods and Buddhas who placed their cultivation techniques and spiritual item seeds in the martial heaven world definitely didn't come from the desolate world. I've also seen some of their ancient cultivation techniques. Although they're mostly the same, for example, there are Buddhist, Taoist, Confucian and so on, but in terms of details they're not the same. Why did these deities leave their legacies in the sky martial world? And why did they suddenly leave this world? The biggest possibility is that they were like the sky demon. They wanted to invade this world, but in the end they left because they were afraid of something. Lin Yuan's eyes gradually lit up and he asked, "Do you think Hongjuan's death retribution exists in the Jianghu world, but it is not me, nor is it Tong Tian sect leader but a secret in the Jianghu world? It could be a cultivation method or a magic treasure. There's a high probability that it's a powerful existence that can kill that guy, or even kill him who's one with the heavenly Tao." Lin Yuan's hypothesis was very bold, but it was very possible. Hongjun had created countless cultivation methods. The so-called Buddhism and Taoism were one family. They were all created by Hongjun. Even the Confucian cultivators and the Yin-Yang school that gradually declined in Wuxia and became the national religion of Japan were born from the cultivation methods created by Hongjun. However, even if such cultivation methods were cultivated to the extreme, there were only 5 great Taos. The so-called heaven, earth, man, ghost, and God, immortals belong to the heavenly court and ghost immortals belong to the underworld. Although the other 3 Taos could be cultivated, they were not as powerful as the desolate world creatures. The great Taos cultivated by the most ancient desolate world creatures were actually the same. Whether it was the Taoist school led by Sanqing, or the Buddhist school led by Tathagata and Dipankara, what they fought for in the end was nothing more than faith and incense. In the heaven martial world, after the ancestor monster realm and the supreme realm, the true God realm, there was no need to continue to advance. It was all about cultivation and magic power, which was another name for the power of incense. Cultivate slowly? No matter how powerful a character was, how could he be more powerful than Hongjun? After the true God realm, there was no difference in aptitude. It all depended on who had more believers and who had more incense. When one reached the extreme of cultivation, only the monkey Yang Jian and Neza could fight against the heaven and earth. However, Taishan could easily injure the monkey who was on par with Yang Jian with a Vajra bracelet. Tathagata could also seriously injure or even kill Lu Er, who was also one of the 4 spiritual monkeys, with one palm. Those below the true God realm were all ants. Because the difference between the true God realm and those below the true God realm was like the difference between the celestial Dipper realm and the Zephyr realm. The level of power they used was completely different. Even though Hongjun had made countless enemies over the years and fought against thousands of worlds, the foundation of the desolate world was there. The incense that could be accumulated over countless years was too much. Even the amazing Luo Ho and Yi Zhu were defeated by Hongjun, weren't they? The thing that could kill Hongjun was never an individual, but a powerful foreign object that could kill him. For example, among those desolate world big shots who were called the gods of creation, only Tong Tian got rid of the identity of a prisoner. It was because he got a treasure that had nothing to do with the desolate world that he was able to create a world that was not bound by Hongjun and become an existence at the same level as Hongjun. Well, if Tong Tian didn't enter the desolate world, he was indeed in existence at the same level as Hongjun. Unless Hongjun came in person, the other 5 saints couldn't defeat him in the Tong Tian world even if they joined forces. Of course, if Hongjun came in person, there was a high chance that the Tong Tian world would explode, and then he would perish together with Tong Tian. That guy divined that his death tribulation would be in the Jianghu world, but he couldn't find a Tong Tian at the same level as him, so he thought that I was his death tribulation. But in my opinion that's not the case. The secret of the Jianghu world is his death tribulation. Right now, Tong Tian and those desolate world creatures are all looking for the secret of the Jianghu world. Although we're lagging behind, it's not too late to react. If we can find out what the secret is, we'll have the power to kill him. Tong Tian isn't his death tribulation, I'm not his death tribulation, and neither am Red Cloud Taoist and the others. But if I'm not wrong, even he has divined his death tribulation, which means that the secret is about to be revealed. Any one of us can figure out this secret and get the thing that can kill him. Think about it, the biggest change in the Jianghu world after so many years is... Lin Yuan's eyes were piercingly cold and his mind was spinning rapidly. World completion. At the same time, the system added 3 huge exclamation marks. It was completely convinced by Lin Yuan. Although Lin Yuan didn't have any evidence, it couldn't find any loopholes in Lin Yuan's thinking. Chapter 998. The world is divided into big 1,000, medium 1,000, and small 1,000. Although the 3 levels of the world are said to be 3,000, in fact, the number of worlds existing in the Sea of Bitterness has always been a mystery. Rather than saying that there are thousands of worlds, it is better to say that it is endless. Thousands of worlds is just a name to describe the huge number. Just like the so-called DC and Marvel worlds in the comics of Lin Yuan's previous life, there are parallel universes. Even if it is an ordinary world, it may be secretly related to several or even dozens of parallel worlds. Even if it is a saint-level existence, it is difficult to set foot in every world. The heavenly court had 33 levels of heaven. It did not mean that there were 33 levels in the sky, but that after entering the gate of heaven, the first level was the immortal world. Like a building, each level of heaven was a different world. The so-called 33 levels of heaven referred to the 33 worlds occupied by the heavenly court. Of course, the 33 levels of heaven did not refer to the exact number. The Eldritch world had been conquering thousands of worlds for many years, and had plundered and devoured more than 1 or 2 worlds. The Eldritch world had once nurtured extremely terrifying existences. The so-called 3,000 demon gods were the manifestation of the rules. It was a big deal for 1 or 2 of them to appear in an ordinary world. The Eldritch world could nurture 3,000 demon gods, and in this aspect, it deserved to be called the strongest world. However, the Eldritch world was not an exception. Even if other worlds were not as powerful as the Eldritch world, they would more or less give birth to some extremely terrifying existences. It could be an invincible creature, or it could be the manifestation of rules, like the 3,000 fiend gods, or it could be a supreme treasure with the power of rules. Even if a mortal wielded it, it could kill gods and fiend gods. What is brewing in the Jianghu world is most likely a supreme treasure. Red Cloud Taoist is looking for it, Tong Tian is also looking for it, and in the future that guy might join the ranks of the people looking for this supreme treasure. If I can get it, this war that has spanned countless spacetime may come to an end. Lin Yuan's eyes flashed and he said silently, and you'd better pray that I'm the one who gets it in the end. The system was silent. In fact, from the beginning to the end, Lin Yuan didn't have much desire to control everything. He was more like a hard-working worker, doing his best to make himself stronger, then waiting for an opportunity to kill Hongjun, then returning to his original world to take revenge. As for whether he lived in seclusion or pretended to be an ordinary creature, it didn't matter. On the contrary, ambitious people like sect leader Tong Tian and Taoist Red Cloud would not change anything even if they killed Hongjun once they got hold of such a treasure. The only thing that changed was the title of the top existence in the untainted world. Perhaps Lin Yuan wasn't trustworthy. But compared to those two, it was more willing to believe in Lin Yuan. While thinking, the system suddenly said, even if your analysis is correct, no matter what the secret of the Jianghu world is, it will definitely appear with a world-shaking event. Currently, the most likely event to cause the supreme treasure to appear is when the Jianghu world gathers the Heaven Sovereign, the Human King, and the Underworld Sovereign, then completes the 3 realms and gives birth to the 6 realms, completely becoming a great world. But that also means that the saints from the untainted world will descend here. Do you think you can deal with Tong Tian Hong Yun, the untainted saints, the heaven sovereign, and the human king at the same time? It's not that I want to pour cold water on you, but I think that you don't have to participate in this matter. As long as you grow quickly after the battle between that guy and Tong Tian, no matter who wins, our opportunity will naturally come. You still don't understand what I mean. Lin Yuan sneered twice in his heart and continued to recite, now is not the time for me to participate or not. It's about you, are you willing to bet all your chips on the Jianghu world? Bet that the secret here can definitely kill that guy and completely end this war. Me? What should I bet on? The system was slightly startled as if it didn't react. However, its acting was clumsy. Lin Yuan saw through it at a glance and understood what he meant, but he didn't want to bet on it. In truth, it doesn't matter if you don't want to bet. However, I can tell you directly that if Tong Tian obtains this priceless treasure, his chances of victory will be at least 70%. Even if his world isn't as strong as the chaotic world, that guy won't be able to make the chaotic world work together with him. In truth, they are existences of the same level. With the support of the priceless treasure, Tong Tian won't lose to him. Then you won't be facing him but Tong Tian, who has the support of the heavenly Daos of two great worlds and a priceless treasure. So I personally suggest that you terminate the contract with us hosts. You can go die and we'll go our separate ways. So right now you only have two choices. The first is to bet on it and help me become an existence that transcends the heavenly Daos of the Jianghu world. At that time, even if I have to face the encirclement of all sides, I won't necessarily lose. Once I obtain that priceless treasure, we'll have the initiative. Tong Tian will have to join hands with us to liberate the chaotic world. Then, the two of us will keep each other in check and you'll regain control of the heavenly Daos. The three of us will form a very stable triangular relationship. With the priceless treasure in my hand, I won't be able to defeat Tong Tian without your help. Tong Tian won't be able to defeat us if we join hands, and you won't be able to defeat me and Tong Tian. Of course, you can also choose to give up on participating in this battle. I don't know how well you've prepared, but there's an old saying in China. To deal with external problems, one must first settle internal problems. Both Tong Tian and Hong Jun understand this principle. Once Tong Tian obtains that priceless treasure, he'll have the power to directly challenge that fellow. Sooner or later, the two of them will have to fight. But before that, they'll definitely join hands to eliminate your host so that you won't be the one to pick up the spoils. Even if you're lucky enough to escape this encirclement, all the hosts you've managed for so many years will be killed. I'll be conservative, but for at least 30 years, you won't be able to interfere in anything related to the chaotic world. After 30 years, no matter who wins or loses, they'll have the support of the heavenly Daos of two great worlds. Adding on a priceless treasure that can kill him, your chances of winning will be zero. Lin Yuan's appearance from his previous life appeared in his mind's sea. His clear eyes were filled with ridicule. He sneered, then I'll ask you one more time. Do you want to bet or not? This is my personal opinion and I respect your choice. So this is the last time I'll advise you to join hands with me. Chapter 999. At this moment, the Ministry of Works encampment alarm rang. The Minister of Works' face darkened slightly. He looked at Lin Yuan, who seemed to be deep in thought, and said in a deep voice, "It's not an internal alarm. It's Shunning City. I'm afraid there's an undefeatable existence in Shunning City. Someone at the northern frontier prince's mansion has sounded the alarm. Should we evacuate or?" Li Zhong's gaze also fell on Lin Yuan. He chuckled and said, "Let's wait for a while. Don't forget, our Dragon King has never tasted defeat since he was born. So what if it's a difficult opponent?" At the same time, Lin Yuan, who was interrupted by the alarm, turned his head. His blue-white vertical pupils flashed, and endless demonic energy poured into the eye of God. He grasped all the movements in the surroundings in his palm, and then continuously expanded the range of his observation. A moment later, one person and two demons appeared in Lin Yuan's vision. It was the Dean of the Northern Frontier Academy. Other than Yi Bilan, he was the strongest humanoid creature that Lin Yuan had created. His full power was not inferior to an existence at the fourth level of the Void Realm. At this moment, the Dean was like a little chick being held by the throat by an extremely beautiful woman. There was no trace of pain on his face. Instead, it was filled with longing. Two extremely beautiful women, or rather two extremely beautiful demonesses, were walking step by step toward the Ministry of Works encampment. Along the way, all the cultivators and demonic beasts of the northern frontier did not even have time to show hostility to the two demonesses. Like the dean, their faces were filled with longing, and they followed behind the two demonesses like walking corpses. The advancing group was constantly expanding. Fox demons. Lin Yuan murmured, and a trace of seriousness flashed in his eyes. The most terrifying thing was that the two extremely beautiful demonesses had faces that Lin Yuan was very familiar with. The one walking in front had 6 fluffy snow-white fox tails behind her back. Her face was Lin Yuan's mother. After that upheaval, in order to cover for Lin Yuan's escape, his mother took the initiative to appear and lead the pursuers in the opposite direction. Otherwise, that night Lin Yuan's entire family would have been wiped out from the world. The aura of the one at the back was much weaker. She only had 5 fox tails behind her, and they were all golden in color. It seemed like she was not from the same clan as the 6-tailed demon fox in front. Her face was the only woman in his previous life who had moved Lin Yuan's heart. She was also the only woman who could make Lin Yuan feel some warmth when he was in dire straits. Later, her enemies found her and threw her down from the 21st floor in front of Lin Yuan. Even her bones could not be found. As his demonic power surged, Lin Yuan could easily cover up the other party's illusion. When part of the face was covered up, Lin Yuan saw 2 demonesses walking on 2 legs. However, once the cover was removed, the 2 incomparably familiar faces would appear again. This was not an illusion. Like other clans, the Fox clan paid attention to the talent of cultivation. However, except for the Tushan clan and the Qingqiu clan, the other 2 clans of demonesses and those ordinary demonesses with mixed bloodlines could be seen by all the people in the universe. The Fox clan was best at illusion. There was a kind of demoness who was born with charm. Even if they did not perform any illusion, they could make the creatures who saw them see what they most longed for, missed, and yearned for. There was a word to describe this kind of demoness in Lin Yuan's previous life. The so-called natural charm referred to this kind of demoness at the beginning. Daji of the Su clan was one such demoness. Under the influence of the natural charm, she was able to make the human world compete with the cultivation world and suppress the North D clan, the South Barbarian clan, the West tribe, and the East Barbarian clan. Lin Yuan did not know about the other 3 clans. However, in the East Barbarian clan at that time, there was a clan called the Yoqiong clan. Ho Yi who usurped the throne of the Xia dynasty. He was not the Ho Yi who shot the sun in the period of the 5 emperors, but they were often confused with each other because they had the same name and were good at shooting, was the head of the Yoqiong clan. King Zhou of the Shang dynasty was famous for his bravery when he was young. He suppressed the other kings by himself and fought against the entire cultivation world, which was enough to prove his great talent. However, such a great talent was bewitched by the naturally charming Su Daji and made a series of extremely dangerous government orders. Therefore, the civil and military officials of the Zhou dynasty who were ordered to build the heavenly court were killed when the main forces of the Shang dynasty were fighting outside. Even the tribe of Jianghu, which was involved in helping the Shang dynasty, was destroyed by the other 2 sections. The disciples of the tribe of Jianghu either went to the Western religious sect or were taken away as mounts or sent directly to the list of deification. It was the biggest defeat recorded by the Tongtian hierarch who schemed against Hongjun. But now, the naturally charming demoness appeared in front of Lin Yuan, and there were 2 of them. One of them was destroyed in the extremely powerful Shang dynasty. What about the other 2? Was the family property of the northern frontier enough for them to do anything? Damn it. You appeared in front of me in such an appearance. Are you prepared to be dismembered, have your soul extracted, and be washed by the black water of the nether realm until you become barren of time? Lin Yuan stared at the 2 familiar faces, and the corners of his mouth slowly widened, revealing an extremely ferocious smile. Black gas surrounded his body, and the last sentence was almost a roar. Even though he knew that the other party's appearance was an illusion, Lin Yuan was still tempted. Little Black Jiao, I found you. The 6-tailed demon fox suddenly smiled and looked at the Ministry of Works. After all, the aura that belonged to Lin Yuan suddenly burst out, and he had no intention of hiding it. Anyone who was not blind could sense Lin Yuan's existence. Lin Yuan sneered and said coldly, Demon Fox, this king will give you a suggestion. Use an illusion to cover your charming bones, and this king can promise to let you suffer less when you are alive. Hearing this, the 2 demon foxes were slightly stunned. Was this Black Jiao crazy? They came from the Su clan and the Jianghu clan respectively. They were natural foxes with charming bones that appeared once in 1,000 years. Ordinary creatures would immediately put down all their hostility when they saw them. At the very least they would let down their guard. After all, those creatures only saw the beauty that they yearned for the most, unless it was someone who killed their wife to prove their Tao. However, how difficult was it to kill one's wife to prove one's Tao? Not to mention that there were many people who could kill their wives to prove their Tao. If they could do it so easily, it meant that they had never loved. The so-called wife had always been a tool in their eyes. Could it be that this Black Jiao was the kind of existence who could kill his wife to prove his Tao? After 3 seconds, Lin Yuan's cold voice sounded again. Negotiations have failed. Since that is the case, this king will let you experience all the pain in this world. He will then wipe out your physical bodies, extract your primordial spirits, and wash them with the black water of the nether realm for countless years. He will let you sink into loneliness and pain until the end of all things. Chapter 1000. Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, the demonic energy of level 8 of the desolate demon realm surged out. The various equipment, tables and chairs of the Ministry of Works were pushed aside. Even the Ministry of Works minister and Li Zhong were flushed red from the impact of the demonic energy. Their blood and qi were turbulent, and it was difficult for them to suppress it even with their qi aura. They could only retreat more than 5 kilometers to avoid Lin Yuan's demonic energy. As for the inanimate objects that couldn't leave on their own, they were in an incomparably miserable state. Countless containers containing unknown liquids shattered, and all sorts of precious materials turned to dust. A thick black aura wrapped around Lin Yuan's body, but it was incompatible with the black scales. The 2 types of black were completely different. Lin Yuan's scales were pure black, and the black gas that wrapped around his body was like the ultimate black. Even if the sky was clear at the moment, it could not eliminate such a black color. All the light that approached Lin Yuan would be swallowed by the black gas. In an instant, the area of 5 meters around Lin Yuan was as terrifying as the night, where one could not even see one's own 5 fingers. When powerful cultivators or demonic beasts attacked, they would use all sorts of fancy techniques. However, the true killing move would be when they gave up all special effects to test each other and engaged in close combat. And the black aura around Lin Yuan was clearly not a special effect. It was an anomaly, the sign of becoming demonic. Li Zhong opened his mouth. The Ministry of Works minister immediately stretched out his hand in front of Li Zhong and said in a low voice, "You're King crazy. If you want to die, don't drag me down with you. I don't know what's going on outside, but without a doubt, they've touched the Dragon King's bottom line. Right now, the Dragon King is surrounded by a vicious aura that will swallow and annihilate anything that gets close to him. Even if you and I get close, we'll end up the same way. So the only thing we can do now is wait for the Dragon King to kill the invaders outside and then calm himself down." What if the Dragon King can't calm himself down? Li Zhong paused and asked with a resentful expression. He also didn't know what was going on outside, but in an instant the Dragon King had entered a demonic state. Without a doubt, the invaders this time had broken a certain fragile string in the Dragon King's heart. The Ministry of Works minister was silent for a moment and said bitterly, "From now on, there will be no more Blackwater Dragon King in this world. There will only be one Blackwater Dragon King, bringing endless slaughter and disaster to the world. Our Dragon King has such ability." Hearing this, Li Zhong felt a bitter taste in his mouth. Where the hell did these invaders come from? At the same time, a figure descended from the sky and crashed into the night around Lin Yuan almost instantly. Then, it completely disappeared without a trace. Strangely, the moment the figure disappeared, the irritable Lin Yuan actually calmed down. Although the night around him still existed, his demonic energy no longer went berserk. The night also stopped expanding. At the very least, Li Zhong and the Ministry of Works minister didn't have to worry about being swallowed by the night if they didn't retreat. What is that? Li Zhong's expression changed. His gaze was somewhat sluggish. The invaders of unknown origin, the Dragon King who suddenly went berserk, and the figure that appeared and disappeared out of nowhere, was this northern frontier still the northern frontier he knew? At the same time, in Lin Yuan's consciousness world, Lin Yuan, who had transformed into his previous human form, had his hands behind his back. He expressionlessly looked at the void 3 miles away and said indifferently, "This king wants to kill those 2 fox demons now. I don't have time to play with you. I'll give you 2 breaths of time to scram back to where you came from." The void cracked open, and a pitch-black monster that looked like an aberration walked out from the crack. It opened its mouth, revealing a long purple tongue that licked its face. 6 scarlet compound eyes slowly opened up on its head, and it said with a hideous smile, "Black Jiao Dragon, I've been in this world for 3 years. This is the first time you've lost your mind, and there are signs that you're about to turn into a demon. You want this sovereign to leave? Don't even think about it." Even the mutated monster itself had not expected that all of its plans and schemes would be completely nullified by the Black Jiao Dragon. It had initially wanted to see if Lei Fan would be able to find a chance to strike after he had destroyed the Black Jiao Dragon's plans in the south. Never would it have thought that before Lei Fan had even made his move, just the appearance of 2 fox demons within the Black Jiao Dragon's line of sight was enough to cause it to lose its composure. How could it miss such an opportunity? Consume the power of incense to manifest the 4 celestial slaying swords, Lin Yuan said indifferently. When his voice fell, a golden light flashed on his consciousness, and the power of 17 million incense flames disappeared. Immediately, 4 giant sword phantoms with murderous aura suddenly appeared. The appearance of each sword was different, but the fiendish aura contained in them made one's heart palpitate. The 4 celestial slaying swords. How do you know it? The alien monster's expression changed suddenly. Its 6 scarlet compound eyes opened wide, as if it could not believe what it saw. It was originally a creature from the Tongtian realm. How could it not know the means of the Tongtian sect leader? The 4 celestial slaying swords fell into the hands of the Tongtian sect leader. During the apatheosized tribulation, on the eve of the destruction of the Jie sect, the Tongtian sect leader had set up the celestial slaying sword formation before practicing the 10,000 immortals formation. Later, when he was besieged by the 4 sages, the Taoist priest rode the green ox into the formation and turned into Sanqing to break the celestial slaying sword formation and take away the 4 swords. Celestial slaying sword formation out, Lin Yuan said indifferently. The 4 ancient swords shook at the same time and turned into sword shadows that swept across the sky. Almost in the blink of an eye, they sealed off the alien monster's escape routes. Then, the boundless murderous aura on the 4 ancient swords turned into red light and surged out. It was as terrifying as the sky crying for blood rain. Lin Yuan only used the power of incense to copy the celestial slaying sword formation. If the real celestial slaying sword formation was activated, each red light had the power to kill a sage to be at the peak or even severely injure a primordial chaos daluo. However, to deal with an alien monster that was not even a true god, the real celestial slaying sword formation was indeed not needed. Damned fellow, do you think a mere illusion can scare me? After a short moment of surprise, the alien monster quickly recovered. Its eyes turned cold and a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood suddenly appeared around it. Boundless murderous aura and resentment soared into the sky and crashed into the blood-red light that fell from the sky without fear. After all, this was the world of consciousness. There was nothing that could not be visualized. However, the power of those imaginary things was still determined by the power of the primordial spirit. However, this thought only lasted for a moment. It suddenly found that the mountain of corpses and the sea of blood, murderous aura and resentment it had visualized could not withstand the rainstorm-like red light of the sword qi and were easily penetrated. The red light of the sword qi did not even wear out and continued to shoot toward it. Chapter 1001. What the hell are you? The monster's eyes turned cold. In the blink of an eye, a red sword qi easily pierced through its primordial spirit body. Intense pain assaulted it like a tidal wave. One of its pitch-black arms had already melted away, and its primordial spirit body kept swaying. It almost couldn't maintain its body. This was an injury to the primordial spirit. The primordial spirit had lost an arm. Even if the body was intact, it couldn't use that arm anymore. Moreover, injuries to the primordial spirit were far more difficult to heal than injuries to the body. In the space of consciousness, there was still a rain of blood. Lin Yuan just looked indifferently at the monster that kept dodging and moving. There was no emotion in his eyes. Behind him, a ball of white light quietly floated. However, neither Lin Yuan nor the monster could sense its existence. It was because they weren't on the same level. It was just like how a three-dimensional creature couldn't see a fourth-dimensional scene. I don't believe it. Why is the immortal slaying sword formation in your hands? At this moment, no matter how hard it was for the monster to accept, it had to believe that the red sword qi of this level was definitely not something that Black Jiao, who hadn't even touched the threshold of true God, could visualize. Instead of saying that it was a visualized object, it was better to say that the real immortal slaying sword formation had been destroyed. This Black Jiao's primordial spirit contained the remnant sword shadow of the immortal slaying sword formation. How troublesome. Lin Yuan's eyes were indifferent. He slowly raised his right hand and said indifferently, "Consume the power of incense and manifest the Buddhist kingdom in the palm." As the sound of his voice faded away, the power of the 5 million incense sticks disappeared. A golden light flashed once again on his consciousness. In that instant the void trembled. At the same time the sounds of countless Buddhas chanting rang out. It was as if the Buddhist kingdom of the Western paradise had appeared here. A huge golden hand that covered the sky slowly smashed down. When this huge area attack landed, the aberration monster felt that no matter how fast it wouldn't be able to escape from being covered by this huge hand. Buddhist kingdom in the palm, or should I say Five-Finger Mountain? In Buddhism, it was a divine ability that was extremely famous but not very practical. When the monkey made a bet with Tathagata, he fell into Tathagata's Buddhist kingdom in the palm. No matter how many times the monkey somersaulted, it was impossible for him to escape from Tathagata's Buddhist kingdom in the palm without breaking the Buddhist kingdom in the palm. Therefore, in that bet, the monkey was willing to accept his loss. He was directly suppressed under Tathagata's Five Fingers Mountain for 500 years until Golden Cicada, who was ordered to go to the Western paradise to obtain the Buddhist scriptures, appeared. Speaking of which, it wasn't difficult to break the Buddha country in a palm. It was the pinnacle below the true God realm, which was the monkey's realm back then. If he used his full power, he would be able to break the Buddha country in a palm with just 3 strikes. At that time he would just need to somersault out. Unless the Tathagata was shameless, the monkey wouldn't have lost that huge gamble. However, this thing was like a ghost going around in circles. As long as you knew how to break it, you could easily break it. If you didn't know how to break it, you wouldn't be able to escape the range of the Buddhist kingdom in a palm. The monster wanted to open its mouth to curse, but no sound came out. WNMD. What kind of monster was this Black Jiao? First, it was the celestial slaying sword formation. Now it was the heaven-covering palm. How many magical powers did it have that it hadn't used yet? Actually, ever since I found out about your goal, I've been wanting to laugh. Who do you think you are? How dare you covet me? Lin Yuan's gaze was cold. The heaven-covering palm smashed down. Under its boundless power, it was as if it wanted to crush everything. Heaven and earth lost their color and the sun and moon lost their light. In this space of consciousness, it was as if other than the blood rain that filled the sky, there was only this giant golden palm print left. The mountain of corpses and the sea of blood that the monster visualized was already shattered into pieces by the red sword aura. Now that it collided with the giant golden palm print, it quickly melted like snow in spring. An unparalleled force pressed down, instantly suppressing the monster under the palm. At this moment, the blood rain that filled the sky drifted down and directly melted the monster into nothingness. What a pity! Lin Yuan waved his right hand, and the afterimages of the immortal slaying sword formation and the Buddhist kingdom in a palm disappeared at the same time. The world of consciousness also returned to its original state, as if nothing had happened just now. Although the monster could not resist the divine sense manifested by the power of 22 million Joss flames, he did not expect this guy to be so cautious. He had been scheming against Lin Yuan, waiting for Lin Yuan to be distracted so that he could take advantage of it. In other words, he definitely thought that the power of his spirit was far superior to that of Lin Yuan. As long as there was a chance, he could wipe out Lin Yuan's spirit and obtain the body with the imprint of the Heavenly Way's origin. From there, he could steal the power of the Heavenly Way's origin. This time, when he saw the 2 naturally charming fox demons, Lin Yuan was indeed a little distracted at first, but he soon realized that this was his best chance to fight back. After all, in terms of the power of the spirit, unless one was as strong as the sage realm, it would be impossible to resist these afterimages of divine sense. After all, the opponent was not the Tongtian sect. Once they entered Lin Yuan's world of consciousness and fought, it would be a one-sided massacre. This was indeed the case. But this guy was a little too cautious. In a situation where he was sure to win, he did not invade Lin Yuan's world of consciousness with his whole spirit. Under the joint attack of the Buddhist kingdom in the palm and the immortal killing sword formation, he decisively gave up the part of his spirit that invaded Lin Yuan's world of consciousness. How to describe this behavior? It was like a person who was seriously injured and chose to amputate between death and amputation. Perhaps there were many similar cases, but have you ever seen someone who could survive after being amputated from the waist down? This guy was similar to being amputated from the waist down or even more. If the part of his spirit that he abandoned was taken as an example of being amputated, it was probably the part below the ribs that was cut off. It was just that he did not know what kind of means this guy had. If it were an ordinary creature, even if it was an existence in the realm of true God, it would be difficult for him to escape death if he suddenly lost so much spirit. It's a pity that I didn't kill him in this battle. From now on, he has completely given up the idea of taking over my body. But after suffering such a big loss, if he doesn't kill me, I'm afraid it will damage his Taoist heart. The next time we meet, it will be a battle in the material world. Thinking of this, the corner of Lin Yuan's mouth twitched twice. Even if he lost more than half of his spirit, the opponent was after all an existence that had touched the threshold of true God. The divine sense manifested by the power of 22 million incense might be feared by the opponent, but it would definitely not be able to kill him or even seriously injure him. He hoped that the method this guy used to repair his spirit was not so heaven-defying, and that he could take a longer time to recover. Chapter 1002. In the real world. The two fox demons carried a large number of confused cultivators and demonic beasts from the northern region. Their movements were as fast as lightning, and they rushed to the station of the Ministry of Works in an instant. However, they stopped outside the dark night around Lin Yuan, and there was a faint look of fear in their eyes. Although the two fox demons were stronger than Li Zhong and were not existences that could be completely devoured by the darkness, they would still be seriously injured if they entered rashly. Coupled with the combat power of the Black Dragon, they were afraid that they would also be at risk of death. Most importantly, they had no idea what this dark night was. When they stood outside, they could perceive that this dark night seemed to be a ferocious beast that chose people to devour, and all creatures that entered it would become its blood food. Lin Yuan was in the center of this dark night, and did not seem to be attacked by it. However, it was obviously a bit far-fetched to say that the dark night was Lin Yuan's means, because since Lin Yuan got angry, he had been trapped in the dark night, and had not even made any hostile actions until now. Fear flashed in the eyes of the 6 fox demons as they murmured, "Could it be that someone is secretly plotting to attack the Black Jiao while we were disrupting Shunning City? That's impossible." The 5-tailed fox's expression changed slightly as it said in a deep voice, "Devouring the fate of others for our own cultivation is a secret technique unique to the Fox clan. If we have to find a similar existence, it would be the Tao Tai that devours everything. Unless it's Green Hill, Tushan or the Tao Tai bloodline, no one but us would benefit from attacking the Black Jiao at this time." As soon as it finished, the 2 fox demons fell into silence. The Fox clan mostly lived in Green Hill. Even the Sioux clan was a branch of the Green Hill Fox clan, but it slowly developed and became a new Fox clan. However, the real Green Hill Fox clan had gone extinct many years ago during the war between the Yellow Emperor and Chiyu. The history books mentioned that the Yellow Emperor killed Chiyu in Green Hill, but few people knew that the war between the 2 strongest beings in the world at that time was a terrible destruction to Green Hill, and what kind of disaster had befallen the living beings who lived there. Su Daji of the Yusu clan was called the last bloodline of the Qingqiu clan in some literature books. Actually, it was not wrong to say that. After all, the Yusu clan did have the blood of the Qingqiu clan flowing in them. However, in reality, almost all the pure-blooded foxes of the Qingqiu clan were buried with Chiyu. As for the Tao Tai, one of the 4 evils, it died because of its own moral flaw. This extremely greedy and gluttonous beast ultimately ended up eating itself. Because it couldn't find any food, a ferocious beast that could even eat itself wouldn't have any bloodline left behind, because in its eyes, its spouse and children were just a kind of food. Those who claimed to have the bloodline of Tao Tai were just boasting, or those who had some kind of ability similar to Tao Tai were called Tao Tai by others. After eliminating those 2 answers, the remaining answer was obvious. One of the 4 great fox clans, the Tushan clan. According to the myths and history of the Great Desolate World, the first Tushan fox demon recorded in the history books should be Tushan Nujio. She was the wife of Yu the Great, who established the first dynasty in the human world by controlling the flood. She was also the earliest recorded marriage between the demon race and the human race. Before that, although the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors were powerful, none of them had truly established a dynasty. Therefore, it was not a problem to call Yu the Great the first human king. Later, calling him Yu the Great was a kind of derogatory title. With Yu the Great's achievements, even if he was not respectfully called Diyu, it was only right for the monarch of the Xia dynasty to call him Hoyu. Tushan Nujio was Diyu's wife, and could be said to be the first queen of the Xia dynasty. Her son Xiaqi was also very powerful. Before Xiaqi, the emperors were usually abdicated, just like how Yao abdicated to Shun and Shun abdicated to Yu. At the end of Yu's reign, Yu still abdicated the throne to someone called Yi. Although Diyu abdicated before his death, it was Diyu's son, Qi, who became the emperor in the end. There were two theories among the people. One was that the people of the Xia dynasty at that time were grateful for Diyu's contribution in controlling the flood, so they supported Diyu's son to become the new emperor. The other theory was that after Diyu abdicated the throne, some tribes who were unwilling to submit to Yi rebelled and eventually defeated Yi, making Qi the new emperor. The possibility of the latter was undoubtedly higher. After all, the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors before Diyu all had great achievements, and no one had ever heard of their children being crowned as the new emperor. However, the concept of a dynasty was created by Diyu, and it was also from Qi that the public world became the family world. After Qi, the emperors were basically the bloodline of the founding emperor, and there was almost no abdication. Speaking of which, it was related to the feud between the Tushan clan and the Jianghu clan. Before Su Daji, who became famous because of the investiture of the gods, there was also a fox of chaos, who was the wife of the Dongyi Youqiong clan's leader, Ho Yi. The third emperor of the Xia dynasty, Tai Kong, was ambushed and chased away by Ho Yi, and it was because of the plan of Ho Yi's advisor, Han Yi. After that, Ho Yi supported the puppet emperor Zhong Kang, and after Zhong Kang's death, he promoted Zhong Kang's son, Xiang, to the throne. In the end, he removed Xiang from the throne and took over the throne himself. These were all Han Yi's plans. At this time, Ho Yi did not know that his wife had already secretly contacted Ho Yi, and in the 8th year of Ho Yi's usurpation of the throne, she bribed one of Ho Yi's attendants to assassinate Ho Yi, and then usurped Ho Yi's throne. After that, she ruled the Xia dynasty for 28 years, and reunited the country after Tai Kang's death. However, in her later years she did not care about politics and finally died in the war to restore the country. The father and son pair, Zhong Kang and Xiang, who had been controlled by Ho Yi for 2 generations, naturally did not have any power, so Shao Kang, who had defeated Han Yi in the end, must have had someone supporting him. If one thought about it carefully, it was not hard to see that the only one who could still support Shao Kang's recovery at this time was the Tushan clan, the mother clan of the Xia royal family. The powerful Xia dynasty showed signs of collapse in just 3 generations, and the throne changed hands one after another like a toy. From Ho Yi to Han Yi, there was always a pushing hand behind the scenes. The fox demon who played with the bloodlines of Diyu and Tushan Nujio in the palm of her hand was from the Jianghu clan. Only magic could defeat magic, and only a fox demon like Tushan Nujio, who was willing to assist the king, could defeat a fox demon like the King of Chaos. The Tushan clan and the Jianghu clan had already established a blood feud since the beginning of the Xia dynasty. Now that it was suspected that the forces of the Tushan clan had entered the scene, the 2 fox demons immediately felt uneasy. Chapter 1003. But the Tushan clan cultivates the Tao of love. They've never done anything like you and my clans to bring chaos to the dynasty. The 5-tailed fox demon looked resentful because it was born in the Jianghu clan and had a blood feud with the Tushan clan. If there really was an expert from the Tushan clan who was stronger than it, then no matter what the fox's goal was, it would have no chance of surviving. A fox demon from the Su clan? It had never counted on that. They were all foxes from the same mountain, so what was there to talk about? They were both foxes that brought disaster to the country, but the Su clan was not much stronger than the Jianghu clan. If this fox demon suspected to be from the Tushan clan had the same goal as them in coming to the northern frontier, then the 6-tailed fox demon from the Su clan would not attack it. It would be good enough if the fox demon took its head in exchange for a powerful ally. With a thought, the 6-tailed demon fox's eyes, and the cultivators and demonic beasts who were trailing it because they were confused all walked into the darkness. Cultivators below the void netherworld realm would be swallowed by the darkness the moment they stepped in. Even void netherworld realm cultivators would only be able to take 3 to 7 steps before they were swallowed up. Demonic beasts that relied on their strong bodies had it slightly better, but so far the furthest they had been able to take was only 9 steps. These 2 fox demons really deserved to die. Li Zhong's eyes reddened as he murmured softly. He could not see through the cultivation of the 2 fox demons, but he knew that he was no match for them. On the other hand, he cultivated a special cultivation method that connected his fate with the fate of the northern frontier. If the 2 fox demons attacked him, they would definitely be devoured by the fate of the northern frontier. Sister, could this person be the king of the northern frontier? The five-tailed fox demon turned its gaze to Li Zhong and said mockingly, connecting your fate with the fate of the northern frontier. Interesting. This is the cultivation method of the human king. How can this world have it? When this matter is over, the 6 fox demons only glanced at it before looking away. They calmly interrupted the five-tailed fox demon and said, there has never been a human king in this world. Even the high and mighty cultivators are just pawns left behind by that mighty person. The only variable in this world is the northern frontier. Don't forget why that mighty person invited you and me here. Moreover, as long as the Black Jiao is alive, the fate of the northern frontier will not be messed up. Even if you kidnap the northern frontier king, you will only be devoured by the northern frontier's fate. I advise you to give up that idea. The five-tailed fox's playful expression disappeared. With a bitter face she said, I will reflect on myself. Don't worry, sister. Buzz. There was a loud noise. The dark night quickly melted like snow in spring, revealing Lin Yuan's huge body that was close to 3,000 feet long. To the demon beasts of the desolate demon realm, 3,000 feet was not huge. However, to Lin Yuan this body was just right for him to unleash his full strength. Except for Lin Yuan, who was originally a human being and turned into a demonic beast due to various coincidences, the reason why the rest of the demonic beasts transformed into humans was not because of how good their human bodies were. Otherwise, the demonic beasts would not like to reveal their true forms when fighting. The biggest difference between human beings and demon beasts was that human beings could learn and innovate. In terms of physical strength, any demon beast was far better than human beings. The rise of humanity was also one of the keys of the heavens. Demon beasts took human form in order to blend in with the crowd and seek stability. If they lived in the body of a demon beast, sooner or later they would bring about bad consequences. The 2 demon foxes were slightly stunned. Their faces were full of shock and anger. They looked at each other and their bodies grew at the same time. The 6-tailed demon fox's body was 5,000 feet long, and the 5-tailed demon fox's body was 3,000 feet long. The 3 behemoths looked at each other silently. Vaguely, 3 waves of demon power rose into the sky and constantly collided in the air. Although it was invisible, it stirred up the natural phenomenon. The clouds and mist dissipated. After all, the northern frontier was Lin Yuan's territory, and Shunning City was not far from here. If they attacked without any scruples, they would have to invest a lot of resources and effort to repair the damage after the war. The 2 demon foxes came here to kill Lin Yuan. As long as Lin Yuan died, the fate of the northern frontier would collapse. In this way they could take the opportunity to absorb the fate of the northern frontier for their own cultivation. The way of cultivation of the Su clan and the Jianghu clan was different from the ordinary way of cultivation, but the effect was incomparably powerful. The strength of the demon concubine Daji, who had once caused chaos in the Shang dynasty, was obvious to all. She was even known as the last 9-tailed fox of the Green Mountains. In the world there were many Green Mountains in the Fox clan, and the 9-tailed fox was the most respected. When Green Mountains and 9-tailed gathered into one fox, there was no doubt that this demon fox had the power to turn the world upside down. Although in the history of the Zhou dynasty Daji was killed by Jiang Shang, there were some clues in the history of later generations. After Daji's death, a woman named Hua Yangtian suddenly appeared in India, which was also one of the 4 ancient civilizations, and broke the rivers and mountains of India into pieces. Then, in the Tang dynasty during the Heian period of Dongying, a woman named Tamamo appeared out of nowhere. Looking at the lives of these 3 women, it could be said that they were almost exactly the same. They were all talented and beautiful, but in the end they brought disaster to the country and the people. It was not difficult to see that this was what Su Daji did to announce to some people that she was still alive after she escaped from Jiang Shang's hands. Lin Yuan, who shared information with the Heavenly Way's origin, knew a lot about some secrets of the untainted world. Different from the novels in his previous life, the real 9-tailed fox was extremely rare. Talent, opportunity, and coincidence were all indispensable. It was rare to see one in countless years. Otherwise, the 9-tailed fox would not be a legendary existence in the untainted world where Daluo was everywhere. How ridiculous was the saying that when a fox cultivated, it would cultivate 1 tail in 100 years and become a 9-tailed fox in 1,000 years. Even the humans who ruled countless worlds in the heavens and considered themselves as the primes of all living things had many cultivators who were stuck in a realm for 70 to 80 years. Was it possible that the Fox Demon clan's advancement was like eating and drinking water, and they advanced every 100 years? However, although this kind of cultivation was powerful, its restrictions were also extremely huge. In any case, from what Lin Yuan knew, it seemed that only Su Daji, a fox demon, had used this method to cultivate into a nine-tailed fox. This was also because the untainted world at that time was still vast and boundless, even though it had been shattered a little after the first tribulation of the Dragon Han and the War of the Liches and Demons. How powerful was the human dynasty that was built in such a world? Even Emperor Xin, who was called King Zhou, was a man of great talent and bold vision. Even the Zhou dynasty was destroyed by the strong vassals. However, Emperor Xin of the Shang dynasty before the Zhou dynasty could be said to be the first emperor in history who wanted to centralize power. Chapter 1004. Su Daji had bewitched a wise and bold king and brought chaos to an extremely powerful dynasty. Only then was she able to cultivate into a nine-tailed demon fox. Ever since the investiture of the gods, the eldritch world had been shattered. After the Shang dynasty there were very few human kings. Most of the emperors were known as the Son of Heaven. Which fox demon dared to bring chaos to the heavenly Tao alone? As the saying goes, when immortals fight, mortals suffer. This saying was absolutely appropriate in the eldritch world. Let's not talk about the distant past. During the time of King Zhou, the Shang dynasty had a population of over 100 billion. However, after the investiture of the gods, the population of the great Zhou dynasty was less than 50 billion. After various disasters, the world's population was less than 10 billion in Lin Yuan's previous life. Of course, this was also related to the fact that the eldritch world was constantly being destroyed and fled. The world's surface area was getting smaller and smaller. The Fox clan that escaped could not find another dynasty that was comparable to the Shang dynasty. As for the Fox clan that stayed in the eldritch world, although they witnessed the eldritch world's expansion, no fox dared to bewitch the self-proclaimed Son of Heaven and absorb the fate of the nation. If the fox girl from the Jianghu clan before Su Daji had succeeded, she might have surpassed Su Daji in an instant and become a great fox demon above the nine-tailed fox realm. Unfortunately, the Xia dynasty also had the fox from the Tushan clan behind it. In the end, the Xia dynasty was restored and the Jianghu clan failed on the verge of success. Although what she did was greater than Su Daji, her reputation and strength were far inferior to the later Su Daji. However, in the Jianghu world, although there were almighty arrangements, there was no human king descending into the world. Instead, there was an anomaly like Lin Yuan, who had the body of a demon and the soul of a human. Imitating his previous life, he had created the northern region. In a sense, Lin Yuan was the human king of the Jianghu world. However, he had divided his human fate to Li Zhong, and he was the god of the northern region. The two fox demons knew that they might not be able to confuse Lin Yuan, so they wanted to kill him and absorb the human king fate on Li Zhong's body to cultivate. This king is very curious. Who is the Almighty you speak of? Lin Yuan stood in the air. His gaze was cold. He said, "This is this king's last mercy. If you tell me the truth, this king may spare you some suffering." Qi, the six-tailed fox demon, laughed and said coldly, "Little Black Jiao, we haven't even made a move yet and you think you won't win." The six-tailed demons and dark Qi. Cultivators and cultivators. Cultivators and cultivators and cultivators. Sky demon and cultivators to cultivators. And cultivators, to the cultivators. Cultivators cultivators to the ground. Black cultivators. Cultivators 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 cultivators. And cultivators, by the black cultivators, cultivators. Cultivators cultivators. The six-tailed fox demon's heart moved. She revealed her seductive appearance. However, a moment later the Nether River creatures were unmoved. Being imprisoned in the black water of the Nether realm, they have become a part of the black water of the Nether realm. They do not have their own will and feelings at all. They will only listen to the orders of the Nether River or the orders of Lin Yuan, the master of the Nether River. Even in the face of all the beauty in the world, they will not have any hesitation when Lin Yuan says to kill. Lin Yuan swung his tail. The beasts formed by the Nether realm's black water all roared. In an instant, the heaven and earth essence Qi was mobilized. All kinds of spells gradually appeared. The five-tailed fox demon's expression turned cold. She said in a low voice, "Sister, these monsters cannot be judged by common sense. Right now they want to gather power to attack us. If we sit and wait, we may die. I will go first and stop these monsters for you. But I heard that these monsters are supported by the presence of the Nether Realm. They cannot be killed or destroyed. Sister, please kill Black Jiao as soon as possible." As soon as the five-tailed fox demon finished speaking, her enormous body started to run. She crashed into the Nether River creatures. She clawed and turned all the Nether River creatures in front of her back into Nether Realm's black water. However, when the black water fell to the ground, it wriggled and took shape again. The five-tailed fox demon looked fierce, but her efforts were useless. Speaking of which, even if it was useless, she had to do it. Allowing these Nether River creatures to gather power and cast spells was undoubtedly an act of suicide. Just like those heroes in Lin Yuan's previous life, if they were good, they could escape unscathed or even kill 30 to 50 ordinary archers at the same time. However, if they were in a military formation, they would be hit by thousands of arrows at the same time. The six fox demons' eyes twitched slightly. They glanced at the five-tailed fox demon, who was like a fierce tiger in a flock of sheep, and cursed in their hearts. If the five-tailed fox demon had to choose between the Nether River creatures and Black Jiao, she would rather face the Nether River creatures. Even if the purpose of their trip was to kill the Black Jiao, they had never underestimated the Black Jiao. It had been less than 3 years since he was born, but he had shown a remarkable aura since he was born. Until now he had not been defeated. Perhaps Lin Yuan's cultivation was nothing in the untainted world, but how many people in the untainted world could have such a brilliant battle record as Lin Yuan? Even the great god Pangu, who created the world back then, fought against 3,000 ancient demon gods alone. Although he won in the end, didn't he end up dying and turning into all things? Before Lin Yuan was really defeated, any existence that was his enemy had to fear Lin Yuan's invincible momentum. It was similar to those heroes in the novels in Lin Yuan's previous life who cultivated invincible momentum. This was the root of it. It was not that the invincible momentum had a great advantage, but with the invincible momentum, whether it was fighting with others or exploring the heaven accessing place, unless the opponent also had the invincible momentum, the opponent would be afraid before the fight started. At this moment, the same was true for the six-tailed fox demon beast. Although it came with the intention to kill Lin Yuan in its heart, when it really faced Lin Yuan, it still couldn't help but shrink back in its heart. "This king is here. Why are you afraid?" Lin Yuan looked at the six-tailed demon fox indifferently. He sneered and said, Well, this king hasn't killed for a long time. You have forgotten how this king became famous. How dare you covet my northern frontier?" Although he did not know which powerful figure was setting up the trap, Lin Yuan had never been afraid. Killing Hongjun was the main task of the system, and Lin Yuan would face it sooner or later. But at this stage, Lin Yuan did not need to worry about it. Now he had to face Ancestor Mingi from the Nether Blood Sea. In the future, when he entered the untainted world, Lin Yuan was bound to get a deity position related to the underworld. In the future, the gods did not appear, but there were many powerful figures in the underworld. According to time and place, any one of them was a famous figure. Not to mention the most famous 10 kings of hell, Empress Pingxin, who was the incarnation of Hudu's will after her death, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, who was in charge of the Nether Blood Sea to suppress Ancestor Mingi, and the mysterious Lord of Mount Tai. Chapter 1005. Crick, crick. A crisp sound spread out. Under the collision of the 3 demonic powers, cracks slowly appeared in the boundless void. Lin Yuan's gaze turned. Suddenly, an extremely powerful aura rushed over like a torrent. Even with Lin Yuan's current physique, he was knocked back more than 10 feet by the aura surging from the void. His blood and chi were in turmoil. "What is that?" Lin Yuan was slightly startled and subconsciously murmured. He was not an existence that had not seen the world. Previously, in the Endless Sea, he was thought to be dead by Hongjun. Even Hongjun made a move to send down a consciousness body. If not for the world's will and the incomplete heavenly Tao's origin acting at the same time, Lin Yuan would have been killed. But even if it was just a consciousness body of Hongjun, he would not dare to say that just a trace of aura could injure him to such an extent. In the sea of bitterness, a crack in the void, it was related to the chaotic world, it was even stronger than Hongjun. Lin Yuan's thoughts flashed through his mind, but his eyes still showed a look of shock. No matter which world it was, there was karma. Even an almighty like Hongjun would not casually form karma. Lin Yuan and the two fox demons' demonic powers collided and caused a crack in the void. Even if an almighty happened to pass by, he would only laugh it off. Even if he met a narrow-minded one, the other party would at most berate him verbally. Why would he directly injure him like this? Obviously, the other party was most likely the almighty that the two fox demons were talking about. In other words, the other party was most likely from the chaotic world. The aura just now was directed at Lin Yuan. It was just that his body was too strong. Even the realm of his incarnation had exceeded the limit that the sky martial world could withstand. So he could only wait in the sea of bitterness. Taking advantage of the moment when the crack in the void appeared, he used his aura to hit Lin Yuan. As for the other party's identity, Lin Yuan had already guessed. After all, in the primeval world, there were only a few people who could compete with Hongjun, the Tao ancestor who was in harmony with the way of heaven. There was only one person who could use the void crack to accurately injure Lin Yuan. Old ancestor Yang Mei. Not counting Tong Tian and Hong Yun, there was also Yang Mei. It seemed that Hongjun had offended a lot of people after merging with the heavenly Daos, and all of them had their eyes set on the heaven martial world. It seemed that Hongjun's calamity was indeed in the heaven martial world. And he had to count himself in as well. Although Lin Yuan was not confident to the point of being conceited, he still had some means. The system had sent him to the heaven martial world, and he had indeed walked on a path that was completely different from the other hosts. It was hard to say that this was not the influence of fate. Otherwise, why would he be sent to the heaven martial world and not to the other worlds? Later generations always liked to call the destined person the son of luck, but the two were completely different existences. The destined person, like Lin Yuan today, had the way of heaven behind him, whether in the light or in the dark. Whether it was the speed of cultivation or the opportunities obtained, they were far superior to other transcendents. But the destined person was set up by the way of heaven, and all the opportunities and coincidences were secretly arranged by the way of heaven. Just like the system's sacrificial function, all of them were equivalent exchanges. The only difference was that in the early and middle stages, the one who paid was the way of heaven, and the one who received the benefits was the destined person. But in the later stages, when it came to the harvest, the destined person's fate was naturally needless to say. The strong one defied the heavens, the weak one died. There was rarely a third ending. But what about the son of fate? Fate was a kind of law. It was an existence far above the way of heaven. All the gains of the son of fate were not arranged in advance. It was just that some treasures or opportunities happened to appear and were attracted by the son of fate's luck, becoming the son of fate's assistance. In other words, being lucky was lucky, and being schemed against was being schemed against. Although the two seemed similar in the early and middle stages, the results in the later stages were completely different. With a thought, Lin Yuan looked at the six-tailed demon fox, whose face was full of joy, and said coldly, "Even if you have the patriarch of Yang Mei behind you, this king will still kill you today." The patriarch of Yang Mei? Move back a little. Hongjun, who was in harmony with the way of heaven, and Ping Xian, who was trapped in the netherworld, which one of them was not more difficult to deal with than Yang Mei? Hongjun, who was in harmony with the way of heaven, had fought with Yang Mei in the primordial world. Both sides had their wins and losses, and no one had gained an advantage. However, in the end, didn't Hongjun become the supreme ruler of the primordial world? Although Empress Pingxin was the primordial spirit of the earth goddess and was trapped in the netherworld, and the remnants of the witch tribe had to hide in the netherworld to survive, Empress Pingxin was almost invincible in the netherworld. Even if Hongjun, who was in harmony with the way of heaven, entered the netherworld, she could still fight against him. Lin Yuan did not deny that Yang Mei was powerful, but the two demon foxes had already touched his taboo. It was no different from a fool's dream to think that he could escape this calamity by relying on Yang Mei. Moreover, once Lin Yuan's plan succeeded, he would be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with the rules in the Jianghu world. Not to mention Yang Mei, even if Hongjun's real body came, he would not be able to defeat Lin Yuan in the Jianghu world. Back then, Hongjun had been able to drive Yang Mei out of the primordial world. Could Lin Yuan not do the same? The joy on the six-tailed demon fox's face instantly disappeared, because in its sight, Lin Yuan had already swung his tail and flew over, as if he did not take the patriarch of Yang Mei's warning to heart. "Black Jiao, how dare you!" The six-tailed demon fox's expression changed, and the 6 snow-white fox tails on its back smashed down like steel whips. The demonic energy in its body poured out as if it was free of charge. Obviously, it wanted to break the void again and force the patriarch of Yang Mei to kill Lin Yuan. System, consume the power of incense to stabilize the void around me. Lin Yuan's eyes flickered with the fire of fighting intent as he spoke slowly. Every time the six-tailed demon fox attacked, the power of incense would decrease by a lot. However, the strength of the six-tailed demon fox was only comparable to a peak demon king at most. Even if it could break the spatial barrier and cause a spatial crack to appear temporarily, it would only be able to break the spatial barrier 2 or 3 times if it was lucky. The amount of incense he used to stabilize the spatial barrier was almost negligible. In front of the 400 million incense points on the system interface, how laughable was this consumption? Despair began to appear at this moment. Lin Yuan's face was filled with a ferocious smile as he quickly approached the six-tailed demon fox. He opened his mouth and spat out an endless amount of black ice, which turned into countless divine weapons in mid-air. It was a small trick of the ice-controlling technique, but its power was countless times stronger than when he first came to this world and dealt with Badu. Even Heaven Star Realm and Mountain Lord Realm experts would die under this technique. Chapter 1006. Damn it, Black Jiao. You're the one who forced me to risk my life. The 6 fox demons' faces turned cold. They gathered their 6 tails and orange flames burned on the tips of their tails, making them look like 6 suns. Fox Fire was the fox demon's signature move. The strength of a fox demon depended on whether the fox demon could control fox fire. According to the records of his previous life, fox demons could release fox fire from the tips of their tails when they were in fox form, and from the tips of their fingers when they were in human form. The Book of Snow in Beiyue stated that fox fire came from the fox's mouth. There were many different opinions, but no one could convince the masses. But in reality, only great fox demons could truly control fox fire. They could cause a huge fire by throwing out fox fire from their tails. As one of the few non-illusionary techniques of the fox demon race, fox fire was not something all fox demons could use. However, there were some fox demons with low strength who could use illusionary techniques. That was why there were different opinions. The illusionary fox fire only used a person's psychology, similar to some hypnosis experiments in his previous life. But the real fox fire, even Lin Yuan could not help but have a look of fear in his eyes. As expected of the fox demon favored by the patriarch of Jianghu, it had some skills. When the fox fire was thrown out from the tip of the 6-tailed fox demon's tails, it turned into fire dragons that fiercely collided with the black ice weapons that Lin Yuan spat out. In an instant, the endless black ice melted, and the 6 fire dragons gathered together to form a 6-tailed fire fox. Its every movement revealed an aura of supremacy. However, at this level of cultivation no one was a pushover. With a thought from Lin Yuan, the nether realm's black water gathered into a pitch-black water dragon before it landed on the ground. It tightly coiled around the 6 fire foxes formed by fox fire. The 2 beasts kept tearing and biting at each other. The degree of brutality was not inferior to a real battle between starving beasts. Every time he bit, regardless of whether he removed the flaming fox's body or the nether water dragon's flesh, they would all turn into pure spiritual energy of the world. The 5-tailed fox demon who was fighting with the nether river creatures nearby, as well as Li Zhong and the Minister of Works, who had not gone far but could not interfere, immediately received endless benefits. The coldness in the eyes of the 5-tailed fox demon flashed. She waved her claws and swept the nether river creatures in front of her into the black water of the nether realm. She opened her mouth and roared to the sky. Then she ran toward Lin Yuan. At this moment, although Lin Yuan and the 6-tailed demon fox were not in close combat, both of them were using their Dharma powers to fight. Although this kind of battle did not seem as bloody as a physical battle, it was undoubtedly more dangerous. This was because the power that controlled the Dharma body was the power of the primordial spirit. Once the Dharma body was defeated, the primordial spirit would be damaged. Furthermore, during the battle, the Dharma body had to be fully focused and could not afford to be careless. Otherwise, the primordial spirit and the Dharma body would not be in harmony and would immediately enter a dangerous situation. Attacking Lin Yuan's main body right now could be said to be both vicious and deadly. What a vicious fox demon! Li Zhong's face turned cold. The aura of the human king around him surged. He unsheathed the sword at his waist and was about to meet the 5-tailed fox demon. Although he still could not see through the 5-tailed fox's true cultivation, from the looks of the 6-tailed demon fox, this 5-tailed fox's strength was most likely at the demon king realm. Although he had improved, he was still no match for it. He should be able to withstand 3 to 5 moves. My northern frontier is a battle of righteous gods. How dare you be so presumptuous? Before Li Zhong had the time to draw his sword, he heard a soft cry from the sky. In the next moment, a figure wearing a white and red witch robe descended from the sky. Judging from her appearance, she looked even more like a demon beast than the two demon foxes that had yet to reveal their true forms. Although she had a human body and a human face, she had a pair of slender fox ears on her head. 3 fiery red fox tails extended from the back of her witch robe. The tips of the tails were pure white, but the most eye-catching feature was her eyes. Those were a pair of golden, vertical pupils? Kagura? Li Zhong's movements paused slightly, and he could not help but exclaim in surprise. As a demi-human who had defected to the northern frontier, the infamous fox girl Kagura had not appeared in the northern frontier for some time. However, Li Zhong clearly remembered that Kagura was a hybrid of a human and a fox. She had inherited her pair of eyes from her father, which was a pair of fox eyes. All living things were free, and the eyes of a fox were the most charming eyes. The eyes were square and often looked down. The head of the eyes was lower and a little round, and the ends of the eyes were upturned. The black and white of the eyes were not distinct, giving people a kind of drunken hazy feeling. It looked especially charming. Even if a person with fox eyes did not have good facial features, they would still attract many admirers. However, it was clear that the fox eyes were completely different from the vertical pupils of snake-type creatures. Northern Frontier God System Inari God Kagura. Greetings, Taoist friend. Kagura took a step forward and crossed a distance of hundreds of feet. She directly stood in front of the 5-tailed fox demon. Her vertical pupils were slightly curved, like a pair of beautiful crescent moons. Although she did not make a move, the aura she exuded was not inferior to that of the 5-tailed fox demon. The power on Kagura's body was not demonic power or gang chi, but another kind of power of a higher level. What is Inari God? Li Zhong turned his head to look at the Minister of Works. The Minister of Works pondered for a moment and smiled bitterly. Do you still remember that among the 6 departments of the Northern Frontier, Kagura is the head of the Department of Revenue, and she is responsible for the household registration and finance of the Northern Frontier people? According to the Department of Rights list of the Northern Frontier God System, Inari God is also known as the God of Harvest. She is in charge of harvesting crops. Therefore, this fox girl Kagura is very likely to be the second god of the Northern Frontier after the god of war Batu. At this point, the Minister of Works was silent for a moment and then said softly, Also, the Department of Rights asked me to remind you not to think that the Dragon King is biased and did not give you a god position. According to the Dragon King's plan, you will become an existence more powerful than a god in the future. Giving you a god position may increase your strength in a short period of time, but in the long run, it will harm you. An existence more powerful than a god? Li Zhong was slightly absent-minded and could not help but murmur. During the Age of Chaos, the gods were the supreme existence. However, in the world of cultivation, the gods were just slightly stronger cultivators or monsters. This understanding was only completely broken after Lin Yuan appeared. Powerful cultivators, gods, and the like were not worthy of the word god. However, no matter what, becoming a god was a symbol of extraordinary power. What was an existence more powerful than a god? Thinking of this, Li Zhong was so excited that he trembled. Right at this moment, another furious roar resounded, and it seemed to be on the verge of shattering the sky. A golden ape that was over 1 kilometer long and covered in golden fur dashed over with a stone rod that seemed like a pillar in the sky in hand. Instead of saying that it was running, it could be said to be bouncing. Every single time it descended to the ground, it would directly traverse a distance of over 100 m. Chapter 1007. At this moment, the 5-tailed demonic fox was speechless. It had planned to take advantage of the battle between the Black Jiao and the 6-tailed demon fox before attacking the Black Jiao. Even if it could not kill the Black Jiao in one blow, it could at least severely injure the Black Jiao. But now, before it could reach the Black Jiao, a demi-human fox girl who called herself the Inari goddess of the Northern Frontier came. In the distance, the god of war of the Northern Frontier, Batu, was approaching. Kagura alone was not inferior to the 5-tailed demonic fox. With the addition of Batu, who was stronger than it, the 5-tailed demonic fox could not even protect itself, let alone attack Lin Yuan. It made sense. After all, this was the Northern Frontier, the territory of the Black Jiao. If it wanted to join forces to severely injure Lin Yuan here, It was no wonder that the powerhouses of the northern frontier would take action. Suddenly the five-tailed demonic fox's eyes turned cold and it shouted, "Black Jiao, we are the disciples of the Patriarch Yang Mei. If you insist on being enemies with us, you are going against the Patriarch Yang Mei. If you stop now, we will leave and never interfere in the affairs of the northern frontier again. How about it?" In response, the five-tailed demonic fox was still crazily biting and strangling the five-tailed demonic fox. Seeing this scene, the five-tailed demonic fox could see that when the Patriarch sent out a breath to warn Lin Yuan in the Sea of Bitterness, Lin Yuan had already guessed who was behind them. But how dare the Black Jiao? That was the Patriarch Yang Mei, who had comprehended the way of space and obtained the hollow willow tree. Even the one in the Eldritch world who had merged with the way of heaven had to respectfully address the Patriarch Yang Mei as fellow Taoist. Since the Black Jiao had karmic ties with the Eldritch world, it was impossible that it did not know the level of the Patriarch Yang Mei. However, even if it had Hongjun behind it, the Patriarch Yang Mei would kill it in anger. Even Hongjun would not dare to cause any trouble. "I thought that you knew my background and deliberately came here to stop me from achieving Tao. I didn't expect that you were just two greedy fox demons," Lin Yuan said in a cold tone while maintaining his Dharma form. The 6 fox demons looked at Lin Yuan in disbelief. Their eyes were filled with fear. Although losing the battle of the Dharma form would not lead to death, it would undoubtedly hurt one's foundation. In a real battle of magical powers, just the appearance of a powerful Dharma form was enough to scare off countless opponents. After all, if the Dharma form was damaged, the Dharma power would go against the flow, and if it was damaged, the primordial spirit would be damaged. Other than the heavenly Tao sage who had entrusted his primordial spirit to the way of heaven, no one dared to underestimate the consequences of a Dharma form being destroyed. But what was the Black Jiao doing? While fighting with the Dharma form, the Black Jiao still had the energy to care about other things and even speak directly. Didn't this mean that the Black Jiao was just casually fighting with all its might? How could this be? A mere Black Jiao from the barren demon realm. Seeing that Lin Yuan had no intention of compromising, the 5-tailed fox demon glanced at the 6-tailed fox demon, who was covered in cold sweat. She smiled apologetically and used her tiger claws to crush a pure white jade pendant. In the next moment, the power of distorted space appeared and enveloped the 5-tailed fox demon. No. Damn it, how dare you? Seeing this scene, how could the 6 fox demons not see that their comrade had decided to abandon them under pressure? She had used the space talisman given to her by Ancestor Yang Mei before she came to the Jianghu world to teleport away. Not to mention that the Black Jiao was not someone they could fight against, even if the Black Jiao used all his strength. After Kagura and Badu joined the battle, without the 5-tailed fox demon beside them, the 6-tailed fox demon would definitely be severely injured. "You want to leave? Do you think you can?" Lin Yuan still had a sinister smile on his face as he said coldly, "This is the northern frontier, my divine realm. Even in the chaotic world, not any Tom, Dick, or Harry can escape unscathed after messing with someone else's training ground." As his voice fell, it was as if the world was resonating with his words. The power of space that had appeared because of the jade pendant's destruction seemed to have seen its natural enemy. It ran faster than a rabbit and quickly merged into the surrounding space, as if nothing had happened. But the problem was, the 5-tailed fox demon's body that had been enveloped by the power of space was completely taken away by the power of space. Dong. The body that was only a few hundred feet tall suddenly fell to the ground. A primordial spirit flew out of the body and the 5-tailed fox's original appearance could be vaguely seen. At that moment, it had lost the support of its natural charm and looked just like an ordinary fox that was baring its teeth. The 5-tailed fox demon that had died because of Lin Yuan's words suddenly changed its expression. It was so angry that it did not even dare to say anything. It gritted its teeth and fled into the distance. The destruction of the physical body was never a big deal to the creatures of the chaotic world. There were countless treasures and supreme powers that could reconstruct the body. Even if the Patriarch Yang Mei was not willing to pay such a huge price for it, it could still escape back to the chaotic world and enter the investiture of the gods at the cost of its true spirit being bound. From then on, it would cultivate the path of godhood. This king said that he would extract your primordial spirits and inject them into the black water of the netherworld realm to wash it for countless years until all living things die. Do you think this king's words are nonsense? Another cold laugh sounded. Suddenly, countless black chains appeared between heaven and earth, just like the netherworld used to capture souls in the chaotic world. However, these black chains all surged out from the bodies of the creatures of the netherworld that it had killed. The battle at that moment had become a battle between the creatures of the netherworld. The original suppression in terms of cultivation level could not be counted now. With just its primordial spirit, it could not fight so many creatures of the netherworld. Black Jiao. The patriarch Yang Mei will not let you go. The six-tailed demon fox roared and forcefully withdrew its Dharma form at the cost of damaging its primordial spirit. As the Dharma form of the six-tailed firefox was extinguished, the real body of the six-tailed demon fox also spat out a mouthful of blood. The aura on its body was weak and disordered. However, it did not dare to stay any longer. Its figure flashed and rushed towards the south. Oh, running? If you can run, I will pluck my head off and give it to you. Lin Yuan's eyes flashed. The clouds in the sky suddenly dispersed and a huge golden hand appeared. It grabbed the six-tailed demon fox that was constantly flashing. At the same time that the huge golden hand appeared in the central plains of the Jianghu dynasty, the strange monster hiding in Lei Fan's body shrank its neck and did not dare to look at the strange scene in the northern frontier. In fact, it was meaningless to look at it. It had personally experienced the power of the Black Jiao. A mere six-tailed demon fox dared to cause trouble in the northern frontier? It did not know the meaning of death. Boom. The huge golden hand slammed down heavily. The six-tailed demon fox, who wanted to escape with serious injuries, did not even see the Wei River. It was like a fly that was slapped to the ground by the huge golden hand. Chapter 1008. One was a peak demon king while the other was a mid-stage demon king. The six-tailed demon fox and the five-tailed demon fox were like that in the Jianghu world. If the sovereign and the demon ancestor did not appear, they would be invincible in the world. But in the northern frontier, in less than 30 breaths, the two invincible existences were killed. Countless existences who were spying on this battle fell silent, especially the Dao initiation realm cultivators among the Heavenly Gate Guardians. All the great cultivators who had conflicts with Lin Yuan kept quiet out of fear. They could not even control their breathing, and gradually, it became difficult to breathe. Strong. Too strong. Although the Jianghu continent 3 years ago was not much different from today, cultivators above the Heaven Dipper realm rarely appeared. Even if they reached the Void realm, they could roam the world. As long as they did not provoke the demon lineage or the Heavenly Gate Guardians, even the 7 great empires had to treat them with respect. Similarly, even if the demon beasts of the desolate demon realm massacred human cities, as long as the Void realm cultivators did not do anything, no one dared to interfere. What did the demon kings of that era mean? Even if they destroyed an empire, as long as the Heavenly Gate Guardians did not say anything, the world would pretend that they did not see anything. But today, 2 such terrifying existences, one without a corpse and the other smashed into meat paste, Lin Yuan once again changed the world's understanding of him. In the beginning, no one dared to provoke Lin Yuan because Lin Yuan used the ancient demon court's banner. After entering the Endless Sea, the dragon race of the 4 seas did not see the ancient demon court's almighty make a move, so some people lowered Lin Yuan's danger level. But not long after, Lin Yuan summoned an unknown existence to start a massacre under Willowstone Fortress. Even the top Heavenly Gate Guardians were shocked. But why was Lin Yuan so feared at that time? Because Lin Yuan had a powerful backer behind him. But today was different. Lin Yuan had already displayed his strength. He did not block the other almighty spying, not because he could not do it, but because he wanted to announce to the world that he, Lin Yuan, indeed had the strength to kill Dao Initiation Realm cultivators and Demon King Realm beasts. Scram. Lin Yuan stood in the air and his body gradually shrunk, turning back into a black jiao that was less than 3 meters long. He spoke indifferently, instantly dispersing the gazes that gathered on him. At this moment, Lin Yuan's aura was too strong. With his desolate demon realm cultivation, he had slain 2 demon kings consecutively. His invincible aura was getting stronger. Even if his realm wasn't as high, his aura alone was enough to make most people tremble in fear. Even some self-proclaimed transcendent realm and ancestral demon realm mighty figures were secretly thinking if they could become the victor if they were to encounter Lin Yuan. From this, it could be seen how deeply Lin Yuan's invincible aura was ingrained in people's hearts. After everything returned to normal, Lin Yuan slowly landed on the ground. His gaze swept over Kagura, Batu and Li Zhong. After a moment of silence, he turned to look at Kagura and asked, "How is the matter this king asked you to prepare?" Replying to the king of gods, "Everything has been arranged." We're only waiting for the king of gods to personally come to the gods' court to teach us. Kagura bowed slightly. Her seductive face didn't reveal any arrogance even though she was already standing among the first-order powerhouses of the current era. When Lin Yuan was ascending to godhood, he had secretly told her that there was no such thing as a god in the Jianghu world. Even Lin Yuan himself had borrowed the power of a mighty figure to obtain the authority of a god. Although it was still possible to ascend to godhood, she and Bada were only pseudo-gods. Under the eruption of divine power, they could fight against ordinary demon kings. Although they could still fight against those pseudo-gods who claimed to be ancestral demon, the chances of winning weren't very high. Whether they could become true gods in the future still depended on luck. However, thanks to Lin Yuan, Kagura already knew what kind of world the Jianghu world was. In the world that Lin Yuan was involved with, pseudo-gods couldn't even be considered as ants. And the matter that Lin Yuan asked her to do was very simple. After all, she was in charge of the Northern Frontier's Ministry of Revenue. She was in charge of all the household registration and financial matters. Every creature that settled down or was born in the Northern Frontier was recorded in the Ministry of Revenue's archives. What she needed to do was to select the truly one-in-a-million geniuses from these creatures in the Northern Frontier and establish the Northern Frontier Divine Court. They would contribute to the future divine system of the Northern Frontier. Yes, this king will go in a moment. Lin Yuan nodded slightly. With a light swing of his tail, two nearly transparent souls were captured in front of him. If one looked closely, they would be able to see the appearances of the two fox demons that ran rampant in the Northern Frontier. This king said before that you can either use illusions to hide the effects of the seductive bone, or this king will let you die a painful death. Then he will extract your primordial spirits and wash them in the nether realm's black water. Unfortunately, this king went back on his words. You won't die a painful death. However, since he said the other half of the sentence, this king will definitely do as he said. Lin Yuan looked coldly at the primordial spirits of the two fox demons and said mockingly. Even Li Zhong and the Minister of Works couldn't help but shiver. At this point, how could they not know how these two fox demons had offended the Dragon King? The natural effect of the bewitching bones allowed them to become the most desirable appearance in the eyes of others even if they did not deliberately use the illusion technique. Even the Dragon King was no exception. However, it was obvious that the Dragon King's past experience made it so that after seeing the two faces, not only did it not have any longing in its heart, it burst out with endless anger and almost went mad because of it. Just because they didn't hide their innate talent in front of the Dragon King, their primordial spirits were going to be extracted and washed in the nether realm's black water until eternity? Although the Jianghu world was originally an incomplete world, without the heaven realm and the underworld, and without the 6 paths of reincarnation, if the Dragon King hadn't left them some of the nether realm's black water before entering the endless sea, they probably wouldn't have any concept of the existence of the nether river. Primordial spirits or souls being placed in the nether river, what kind of concept was that? It was the same as inheriting all your memories after you died, but you would not have any feelings of your own, because your soul had already become a part of the river Styx. That was not the end of it. The soul that was soaked in the black water of the underworld realm would experience the pain of death all the time. As for the two fox demons, one had died in the spatial turbulence, and the other had died from the giant palm formed by the Dragon King's demonic energy. No matter how one thought about it, it was not a peaceful death. In order to not experience the pain of death and to have their own feelings, all the creatures of the Nether River, no matter how much they hated the Dragon King when they were alive, would do their best to offer their loyalty to the Dragon King after death. They would do anything to please the Dragon King just for a chance to be free. Because other than the Dragon King, the master of the Nether River, there was no existence in this world that could free them. Chapter 1009. And these two fox demons were the only two that the Dragon King declared to be soaked in the underworld realm's black water until the end of all living things. Li Zhong did not know what the end of all living things was, but as the human king of the northern frontier he knew very well, all living things in the world had a cycle of reincarnation. Even if the cycle of reincarnation did not manifest, it did not mean that it did not exist. It was like a seed sprouting into a towering tree, and after the tree died, it would gradually decay into nutrients and return to the land. Unless this cycle of reincarnation was broken, all living things would not welcome the end. So the Dragon King's words, when translated into the common language of the Jianghu continent, meant, I will soak you in the underworld river until the end of the world. How many years would it take for the world to be destroyed? Li Zhong did not know, but he knew that unless he could become an existence stronger than gods, as the Dragon King said, he would never see that day come. The souls of the two fox demons wailed and turned into pitch-black color. As Lin Yuan's demonic power loosened, they fell to the ground with 2 ticks, turning into 2 drops of pitch-black liquid, and then melted on the ground. In the time that I was not in the northern frontier, you did well. Keep up the good work. As his voice fell, Lin Yuan's figure moved and disappeared from Li Zhong's sight. After 2 breaths, Lin Yuan appeared on the peak of a mountain. 200 youths wearing the same black clothes silently looked at Lin Yuan, who had suddenly appeared. Their eyes were gradually filled with fanaticism. To the creatures of the northern frontier, even if Lin Yuan did not call himself a god, there would still be people who would regard him as a supreme god. This was because Lin Yuan's appearance had undoubtedly changed the fates of many people. Those who should have been high and mighty had fallen into the dust. Those who should have died without a name had the chance to leave a mark in this world. And now these youths, whose average age was only 12 or 13, and the oldest had just turned 16, had become Lin Yuan's gods chosen. In this cruel world, most children matured early. Even if they were only 12 or 13 years old, they knew that their fates would completely change from this moment onwards. If there were no accidents in the future, they would all become incomparably powerful cultivators. First of all, I would like to congratulate all of you for standing out from the countless creatures of the northern frontier. From now on, you are this king's disciples, cultivating the immortal techniques that this king personally passed down. Unless you fall from an accident in the near future, any one of you will be able to do something that can shake the Sky Martial continent with a stomp of your feet. Lin Yuan coiled his flood dragon body together in mid-air. His voice was not loud, but it was accurately transmitted to the ears of every teenager. What did it mean to be the Dragon King's disciple? The Northern Frontier's star-class generals were also Dragon King's disciples. Although they had formed a general Blackwater army, their average strength was in the Heaven Star realm. If they were placed in the Northern Frontier and Southern Expedition armies, they would at least be captains leading 2,000 soldiers. However, they would rather stay in the Blackwater army and be an officer. This was because as the Dragon King's personal army, the status, treatment, and even future of the Blackwater Army soldiers were incomparable to other armies. Even if they no longer continued to serve in the Blackwater Army, if they were placed in any army in the Northern Frontier, they would still receive the treatment of a general. They could even be promoted to the Ministry of War and become a new noble in the Northern Frontier's imperial court. And now they had also become the Dragon King's disciples. The biggest difference between them and the Star-class generals was that the Star-class generals were only the Dragon King's disciples in name. In reality, their lessons were still handled by the various teaching institutes in the Northern Frontier Academy. However, they were personally taught by the Dragon King and were truly the Dragon King's disciples. This was not an exaggeration at all. Then I still have to congratulate all of you. This is because the techniques that this king imparts will be extremely compatible with your body's aptitude. Furthermore, the higher the limit of this world, the higher the realm you will be able to cultivate to. There won't be a situation where after cultivating to a certain realm, you will lose the subsequent cultivation techniques and be unable to progress for the rest of your life. Lin Yuan spoke again. This time, a look of surprise appeared in the eyes of most of the youths. As the top geniuses selected from countless creatures in the Northern Frontier, most of them were humans, but there were also some demi-humans. Because they were now isolated from the Hengduan Mountains, no young demonic beasts were selected. However, from another perspective, to be able to give birth to outstanding offspring, the parents must also be powerful cultivators. To put it in a more scientific way, one could not expect the union of two mortals with no aptitude for cultivation to give birth to an offspring with extraordinary aptitude for cultivation. That kind of genetic mutation was extremely rare. Therefore, these youths were no strangers to cultivation. It could even be said that they had been taught by their families. After all, at this age, if they were born in a mortal family, it would be impossible to test their aptitude for cultivation, and they would not know how to build a foundation for their children. Therefore, after cultivating to a certain realm, these youths were actually not unfamiliar with the cases where their cultivation techniques could not keep up with their aptitude. In particular, some of the youths were from the Red Dust Society. The Red Dust Taoist was a living example. How precious was a cultivation technique that was extremely compatible with one's characteristics and had no upper limit for cultivation. Once this news was released, there was no need to verify whether it was true or false. It would set off a reign of terror in the cultivation world. Therefore, while these precocious youths were secretly delighted, they also secretly made plans to keep their mouths shut. Even if someone close to them asked what cultivation technique the Dragon King had taught them, they would definitely not reveal the slightest bit. Because if the slightest bit of this matter was leaked out, it would be a disaster that no one could bear. In the end, you are all lucky but also unlucky. Lin Yuan raised his head to look at the dome of the sky. After receiving the system's affirmation, he said in a deep voice, "Because from today onwards, you will receive the best cultivation techniques and the greatest amount of resources. However, at the same time, you will become enemies in the eyes of the world's consciousness. All the opportunities will not be fated with you, but if you want to obtain them, you will have to put in 100 times more effort than ordinary people. You will have to experience 100 times more dangerous battles than ordinary people. Other than the dangers that exist in the sky martial world itself, when your cultivation is sufficient, this king will also send you to various worlds to seek opportunities and experience." At this point he paused and a ferocious smile gradually appeared on his face. "So, from today onwards, danger and accidents will always be by your side. Survive and stand at the peak of this world. Even the will of the world will have to bow down to you. Or die in another world and even your bones won't be able to be recovered." As his voice fell, the universal scripture was activated. Countless scriptures appeared, arranged in different combinations, and poured into the minds of these youths, forming a brand new cultivation technique that was incomparably suitable for them. Chapter 10:10. If the system had done something against the will of the world before it knew Lin Yuan, it would not hesitate to send down the punishment of heaven and turn this arrogant person who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth into ashes. But it had no choice. Lin Yuan gave it. No, Lin Yuan's picture was too tempting. Not everyone was qualified to know some secrets of the untainted land. But as the way of heaven in the untainted land, it knew more secrets than Hongjun. 9 was the limit in the world, especially for the way of heaven. So at the very beginning, there should be 9 sages of heaven. Although Hongjun had achieved the origin, he was also a sage of heaven after combining with the way of heaven. Not long after, Hongjun completely grasped the authority of the way of heaven and was conferred the title of Sage of Heaven. They were Sanqing, Goddess Nviwa and Western Shi, who were known as the 6 sages. As for the remaining 2 sages, Hongjun naturally did not hold them in his hands, but used them for other purposes. The 3 sovereigns of the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors shared a sage position. Later, the 3 sovereigns were schemed by Hongjun and could never leave the Fire Cloud Cave. The human tribe was undoubtedly the protagonist of the untainted land. Since there was the way of heaven, there must be the human tribe. The 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors were supposed to be human tribe sages. However, they were schemed by Hongjun and shared a sage position of heavenly way. Naturally, they could not become human tribe sages again. Then, because they shared a sage position of heavenly way, their individual strength was only at the peak of sage to be. They were more powerful than Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals, but they had not reached the level where they could kill Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals as if they were dogs, let alone compete with the 6 sages of heaven or Hongjun. The 5 emperors after the 3 sovereigns did not have as much merit as the 3 sovereigns. Under the scheme of Hongjun, it could be said that one of them died. Of course, in addition to the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors, if the human king was born and gathered the fate of the human tribe, he could also become the sage of the human tribe. Thus, the human tribe and the way of heaven could compete with each other. Therefore, Hongjun planned another god's investiture tribulation. Although all parties had their own plans, Hongjun did not stop those creatures from escaping. His basic purpose was to set off the god's investiture tribulation without any hindrance. Therefore, in the investiture of the god's tribulation, the Jie sect, which was known as the 10,000 Immortals Court, was destroyed, and so was the Shang dynasty. After King Zhou, there were no more human kings in the human world. The so-called Emperor of Zhou was just a puppet that was casually supported by the heavenly Tao. Even until 800 years later, when the fate of the great Zhou dynasty was exhausted, the Warring States period became the Spring and Autumn period. During the Warring States period, the Qin Emperor swept the world. However, the most unexpected thing was that Ing Zheng did not consider himself the Emperor of Zhou. He called himself the first emperor and gathered the titles of the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors on himself. This showed that Ing Zheng did not want to be the lackey of the way of heaven and wanted to establish the human king again. Then the 6th emperor of the great Qin dynasty unified the world. When Ing Zheng was on the throne, he built the Great Wall, wrote the same books, ran the same rails, strictly enforced the law, and ruled the world. He was also worthy of the title of the Emperor of the Ages. In order to resist the way of heaven, he even burned the cultivation classics and killed the alchemists in the world. When he succeeded the throne, he even began to build a mausoleum for himself and cast the terracotta army. Even after his death, he would turn into a dragon soul to protect the human tribe. Therefore he was called the ancestral dragon. Of course, the result was that the second emperor of the Qin dynasty died. A ruffian who came later because he called himself the emperor of the great Han dynasty, established the Han dynasty with a history of more than 400 years. Another ambitious person with great talent and bold vision died, but he was still scolded as a tyrant. What kind of irony was this? It was true that the later generations called themselves the Han dynasty, but everything of the great Han dynasty was taken over from the Qin dynasty. The only difference from the Qin dynasty was that the Confucian school was abolished and the Confucian school was respected. The dynasties of the later generations also used history to prove that when the Confucian school was strong to a certain extent, it would lead to the destruction of the dynasty. And those great people who tried to reform the Confucian school to continue the life of the dynasty died miserably. In short, under the design of Hongjun, the decline of the human tribe was a foregone conclusion. However, it also indirectly confirmed the means of Hongjun, who could suppress the protagonist of the world, the human tribe. The 6 sages, Hongjun, and the 3 emperors, these were the 8 sages of the way of heaven. The remaining sage was Empress Pingxin. Yes, Empress Pingxin, whose primordial spirit was trapped in the cycle of reincarnation and couldn't come out, was actually the 9th sage of the way of heaven. Hongjuan's purpose was also clear. After all, Empress Pingxin's reincarnation was a great merit. If Empress Pingxin could use this merit to go further, she could draw out the underworld that could compete with the way of heaven, especially the 6 paths of reincarnation. The way of heaven was a part of the way of heaven, and the human way was a part of the human way. The way of Asura was the predecessor of the way of devil, the way of hell was the predecessor of the way of ghost, and the way of beast could also evolve into the way of demon. Otherwise, Empress Pingxin, who controlled the 6 paths of reincarnation, wouldn't have been able to ignore the way of heaven Hongjun and use the netherworld to protect the remnants of the witch tribe. Of course, if the underworld wasn't too strong, it wouldn't have attracted the covetous eyes of so many big shots. Yin, son of heaven Huang Feihu, belonged to the celestial court, Lord of Mount Tai belonged to the celestial sect, and Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva belonged to the western sect. Similarly, the Tao of Tao should also have 9 sages. The Emperor of Fengdu was 1, the Taoist masters of the 6 paths of reincarnation were 6, the ghost emperors of 5 directions shared 1, and the Yama kings shared 1. As for Empress Pingxin, she was different from Hongjun. If she really took that step, she would become the Tao of Tao itself, unlike Hongjun, who merged with the heavenly Tao and stole the heavenly Tao's authority. Hongjun took out 2 sages of heavenly Tao and directly suppressed the appearance of the human Tao and the Tao of Tao. The reason why he killed the king of man and built the heavenly court during the deification period was to completely suppress the human Tao and to take away a part of the Tao's authority. During the journey to the west after the deification period, there was a reason why Hongjun flourished the western sect. After all, Sanqing teamed up with him during the deification period, so this tribulation was the tribulation of the Shen men. In addition, after flourishing, the western sect also took away a considerable part of the Tao's authority. Otherwise, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva wouldn't have made the great vow that he wouldn't become a Buddha until hell was empty. With the body of a creature in the untainted land, he suppressed Sanqing, who was transformed by Pangu's primordial spirit, controlled all the creatures in the untainted land, merged with the heavenly Tao, stole the authority, and suppressed the appearance of the human Tao and the Tao of Tao with his own means. Even as the heavenly Tao whose authority had been stolen, it had to admit that sometimes it had to admire Hongjuan's power. In these countless years, it had been an enemy of Hongjun, but in the end, it was disappointed again and again. Even it did not know when this disappointment would turn into despair. Therefore, when Lin Yuan mentioned Hongjuan's death tribulation, it couldn't help but be moved. That was why it helped Lin Yuan to practice the all-being scripture, which was considered a taboo in the eyes of all existences like the heavenly Tao. Chapter 10-11. Half an hour later. Only Lin Yuan and Kagura were left on the mountain peak. Lin Yuan thought for a moment and said, "A total of 217 youths have been personally taught by me. After 3 months, these youths that I sent to other worlds will return. You will be in charge of their food, clothing, housing, and other resources. As for the number of youths, just maintain this number for now. The rest of the youths with potential will be nurtured as reserves. The youths who had learned the Sutra of All Life were sent by the system to other worlds to train. After all, there would not be any war in the northern frontier for the time being. Even if there was a war, it would not be something that these youths could participate in. It was better to send them to other worlds to train. Although the system was a scam, it was very reliable when it was serious. These youths who had learned the Sutra of All Life were essentially the envy of the heavens. They were destined to be plagued with misfortune. After all, once the Sutra of All Life was mastered, Lin Yuan would become an existence equal to the rules. Therefore, other than Lin Yuan, the seeds of the Sutra of All Life would also be affected. However, with the system's protection, even if these seeds were to go to other worlds, they would only be small worlds or middle worlds. Unless they went to a special world like the Jianghu world, the chances of them being killed by the Heavenly Tao was close to zero. Although the system was only a fragment of the Heavenly Tao's original essence, strictly speaking, the Eldritch world was a unique existence in the myriad worlds. Apart from the Eldritch world, even the greater worlds could not produce 3,000 carriers of the rules. Furthermore, the main characters of other worlds were mostly humans. However, the Eldritch world had experienced the rule of the ancient demon god, the dragon, the phoenix, the Kirin, the liches, and other races. Not all Heavenly Tao had the qualifications to be on par with the Eldritch world's Heavenly Tao, even if it was only a fragment of its original essence. The influence of the rules could not be removed, but the possibility of it being killed prematurely did not exist either. Therefore, the 217 youths might be lost, but the number would not be too great. With the current talent pool at the northern frontier, it was completely possible to replenish them in time. I'll set a small goal first. In the Heaven Martial world, he had become an existence equivalent to the laws. Even if his cultivation base couldn't keep up, he was essentially on par with gods like Pangu and Yang Mei. Adding on the support of the laws of the Heaven Martial world, although he wasn't as domineering as Hongjun after merging with the Heavenly Daos, his battle prowess definitely wouldn't be the slightest bit inferior. This was also the reason why Lin Yuan was so determined to kill the two fox demons even though he knew that the patriarch of Yang Mei was behind them. Most of the time, Lin Yuan would make a lot of impulsive decisions under the influence of his inner demons. However, as his cultivation increased, Lin Yuan was gradually able to control his actions under the influence of his inner demons. Otherwise, he wouldn't have used this matter to set up a trap for the outer god from the Heavenspan realm. Then the next problem to be solved. Lin Yuan's gaze turned and fell in the direction of the Hengduan mountain range. Up until now, the incubus still showed no signs of waking up. Lin Yuan had also gone to visit, but he wasn't optimistic about the incubus's injuries. Frankly speaking, if not for the Kirin bloodline erupting in the incubus's body, it would have been impossible for it to fight against the outer god. Although the demon beasts and purgatory creatures in the Hengduan mountain range had jointly plotted against the incubus, it was the eruption of the Kirin bloodline in its body that saved its life at the critical moment. After all, it was an auspicious object destined by the heavens. Although it was rare, it wouldn't die so easily like during the first tribulation of the Dragon Han. However, although it wouldn't die, it was really hard to say whether it could wake up. If the incubus could rely on its own strength to wake up this time, its future achievements would be limitless. The great path that surpassed its ancestors might be directly placed in front of it. Otherwise, it would depend on how unwilling it was to combine with the bloodline power in its body. The more it resisted the power of the Kirin bloodline, the lower the possibility of waking up. That's good too. I want the Hengduan mountain range and the endless sea. If you wake up, I really don't know how to face you, the Beast Master. Lin Yuan's eyes narrowed as he whispered softly. An hour later. Due to the attack on Shunning City, the turmoil in the entire northern frontier had subsided. Even if there were still people who wanted to cause trouble in the dark, they had to think twice. After Lin Yuan, who had casually killed 2 demon kings and even pulled them out and sank them into the liquid called the underworld black water, had the Dragon King's anger subsided? If they were to cause trouble at this time and were caught, it wouldn't be just 1 or 2 people who died. As the turmoil in the northern frontier subsided, more and more cultivators and demon beasts were free and headed towards Shunning City. Firstly, it was to pay homage to the return of the Dragon King. Secondly, it was because the Dragon King's real body had returned to the northern frontier and the northern frontier was in a mess. It was inevitable that he would be angry, so he would definitely make a big move. These clever and slick people naturally wouldn't miss this opportunity. After all, if things were done well, not only would they be able to express their goodwill to the Dragon King, they might even be able to obtain a great fortune. In Lin Yuan's previous life, words like slick and slick were used as derogatory terms. After all, such people didn't have any standpoint. They would act high and mighty in front of those at the bottom and grovel in front of those at the top. Therefore they were very detestable. However, in reality, being slick was also a kind of ability, especially in a place like the northern frontier. Having enough ability was the foundation to climb up. However, other than this foundation, it was also difficult for people who didn't have good relationships with others to move forward. The northern frontier wasn't a place where people would be shocked and put on a high pedestal just because some arrogant person said a few words. There were too many capable people in the northern frontier, especially those who had a certain amount of authority in the northern frontier. Each and every one of them was considered an outstanding person of their time. If they were placed in other dynasties, they wouldn't only have this little bit of authority. They could be promoted with a single thought. Under Lin Yuan's criteria of selecting talents with ability as the first priority, the Li brothers worked together and completely changed the promotion rules in the northern frontier to the capable go up, the mediocre step aside, the mediocre step down, and the weak are eliminated. In such an environment, it would be difficult for the mediocre to even survive, let alone be in a high position. There were many reasons why these heroes gathered here. However, the most important reason wasn't that they could fulfill their ambitions in the northern frontier. Instead, it was much more comfortable in the northern frontier, whether it was fighting, debating with other heroes, or working together with them, compared to other places where they had a good idea but couldn't move forward because of countless mediocre people. Chapter 10-12. When the curtain of night slowly fell. At the northern frontier king's mansion. We pay respects to the Dragon King. With Li Zhong and Li Xian at the head and familiar faces like Xia Xiu and Qin Guanshan standing on the left and right, they bowed and shouted at Lin Yuan, who was sitting on a cushion. Lin Yuan's gaze turned and he said indifferently, "Zhao Guangchong, Qin you two lead the Blackwater army and search the mountains and seas. Thoroughly investigate the northern frontier. In 3 days this king wants all the undyings, not one left alive." Just as Zhao Guangchong cupped his fists and was about to respond, Qin Yu took a step forward and said in a deep voice, reporting to the Dragon King, "It's not that this subordinate is a coward, but that we have yet to find a way to kill the immortals. If the Dragon King only wants this subordinate to find their existence, this subordinate will naturally comply. However, to kill all of them, this subordinate is afraid that this subordinate is unable to do so." As he said this, Zhao Guangchong's expression changed. Because Lin Yuan had given him an impossible mission. No matter. Lin Yuan said indifferently, "There is someone controlling these undyings, which is why they are so difficult to deal with. But this king has already set a trap to severely injure them. Even if they can survive, not to mention in such a short time, unless they can find a heavenly treasure, they will not be able to recover in 180 years. You and your subordinates will each bring the Nether Realm's black water. If you encounter any undyings, throw the container of the Nether Realm's black water at them." Although the Nether River creatures had a certain degree of intelligence, they were only a part of the Nether River. So the closer they were to Lin Yuan, the closer their intelligence was to that of when they were alive and vice versa. Just like when Lin Yuan left the northern frontier, these Nether River creatures that Lin Yuan had given to Li Zhong as trump cards did not contribute anything other than acting as a moat and ensuring the safety of some important cities. They could only follow the orders of Lin Yuan or those approved by Lin Yuan. So someone had to lead these Nether River creatures. Otherwise they would not be able to truly search the mountains and seas. But now was indeed the best opportunity to deal with the undyings. Lin Yuan was now almost certain that the so-called elixir of immortality came from the Nether Blood Sea in the untainted world. The Nether Blood Sea and the Nether River could not be compared, so it could only be seen who was controlling these two substances. But now, the outer god from the heavenly passage world had been tricked by Lin Yuan and most of his primordial spirit had been cut off. Even if he did not die, he had to recuperate first. If he controlled these undyings to fight with Lin Yuan again, he would simply be tired of living. As for the real master of the Nether Blood Sea? Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. No. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva was not even a bodhisattva when he entered the Nether world. At most, he was a venerable of the Buddhism sect. He was almost at the level of subduing dragon and subduing tiger. Relying on the prestige of the Western religious sect, he could directly suppress the Nether River ancestor, an old monster who was also born in the era after Pangu transformed into all things. From this point alone, it could be seen that although the Nether River ancestor had the great ambition of killing all living things to achieve Tao, he was essentially a person who bullied the weak and feared the strong. Who was outside the heaven martial world now? The Nether River ancestor Yang Mei. This figure, who was almost at the same time as Pangu and was not the slightest bit inferior to Hongjun after he merged with the heavenly Tao, was now outside the heaven martial world. Even if the Nether River ancestor had twice the courage, Lin Yuan would not dare to come to the heaven martial world. Although it was unknown how the Nether River ancestor came, there was no doubt that the Nether River ancestor Yang Mei had also divined that Hongjuan's death tribulation was about to appear in the heaven martial world and made the same judgment as Lin Yuan. However, compared to the Tongtian sect leader who could transform into Sanqing and Taoist Red Cloud, who did not hesitate to destroy his own physical body, the extremely powerful Nether River ancestor Yang Mei could not come to the heaven martial world and personally seize Hongjuan's death tribulation. After thinking about it carefully, there was an 80% chance that Hongjun was courting death. This person who suppressed the heavenly Tao, earthly Tao, and mortal Tao had offended countless people over the years. Now that his death tribulation had appeared, those who wanted to kill Hongjun would definitely not miss this opportunity. Therefore, Lin Yuan guessed that it was the consciousness of Hongjun that had attracted the attention of the Nether River ancestor Yang Mei in the Sea of Bitterness. At first, he probably just wanted to see what kind of world would provoke Hongjun to personally take action. As a greater world among the greater worlds, although Hongjun was weak in terms of the heavenly Tao, earthly Tao, and mortal Tao, his foundation was not weak at all. In the past countless years, he had conquered thousands of worlds and opened up the primal chaos Tao field. Perhaps it would be enough if he used the battle strength of the monkey Yang Jian and Neza. Even if it was not enough, there was no reason that the other 5 sages could not take him down. Since when did he need Hongjun to personally take action? In the end, the Nether River ancestor Yang Mei took a look out of curiosity, and saw that Hongjuan's death tribulation was about to arrive. In that case, I accept your orders. Qin Yu clasped his hands together and returned to his position. Li Zhongxing, Zhang Xiuzhu, the two of you are in charge of running the entire southern expedition in MI7. In the near future, this king will lead his troops south and unify the central plains and the southern regions of the Shenwu dynasty. Lin Yuan took a deep breath and continued, although the person who was severely injured by me has nothing to do with the master behind the sky demon, there is most likely a powerful person guarding outside the heaven gate. Although this powerful person does not have a blood feud with the master of the sky demon, they are definitely not on good terms with each other. Therefore, with him around, the sky demon will be isolated and without help. It is best to take this opportunity to eliminate the sky demon. Go and make some preparations. When Zhao Guangchong and Qin Yu have completed their tasks, you will immediately set off. Li Zhongxing clasped his hands together and did not say anything. However, Zhang Xiuzhu's expression changed slightly. He frowned and said, Dragon King, please reconsider this matter. When we were confronting the sky demon by the Wei River, the Shuangjin dynasty was already ready to make a move. They are probably waiting for an opportunity to take advantage of us and the sky demon in one fell swoop. Now, the Blackwater army is severely injured, and the main forces of the southern expedition are restrained by the Frost Mirror Rangers. Although the Fallen Star army is recruiting, they are also in the training phase. This is definitely not the best time to make a move. The Shuangjin dynasty. Li Zhongxing's expression darkened as he murmured with a cold look in his eyes. Originally, he thought that even though the various majestic empires wouldn't participate in the war against the heavenly demons, once the northern region, which had the ability to kill the heavenly demons, was defeated, they would probably immediately face a worse situation. Therefore, even if the various majestic empires didn't send troops to support the northern region, they would deploy troops to help the northern region intimidate the heavenly demons, just like the victorious army of the Azure River Empire. But these guys from the Shuangjin dynasty, they were like a pack of hungry wolves. They had suffered a great loss at the hands of the sky demon at the northern frontier. Now, not long after, their injuries had not healed, and they were ready to make a move again. It seemed like they wanted to rob the northern frontier and obtain all kinds of resources to make up for their losses. Chapter 10-13. This was more than absurd. This was simply absurd. Li Zhong's face darkened as he also cupped his hands and said, This subordinate also thinks so. Now that the Shuangjin barbarian is eyeing the northern frontier covetously, the main force of the northern frontier is still there, and the Sky Demon has not continued to attack the northern frontier, so the Shuangjian barbarian does not dare to attack the northern frontier at this time. However, if the army of the northern frontier is sent out, I'm afraid it goes without saying what the Shuangjian barbarian will do. Zhang Xiuzhu and Li Zhong are both opposed to conquering the Central Plains and the south at this time. What about you? Do you have any other opinions? Lin Yuan did not directly answer Li Zhong and Zhang Xiuzhu. Instead, he turned his head and looked around as he asked in an indifferent tone. These people present were the real power class of the northern frontier, and each of them had their own plans. This time they came to Shunning City in an attempt to curry favor with Lin Yuan. However, they did not expect that before their butts even warmed up, Lin Yuan would throw a huge problem to them. Continue to maintain the current strategy of shrinking back, wait for everything to be sorted out in the northern frontier, and then slowly plan to conquer the Central Plains in the south? Of course, this statement agreed with the two giants, Li Zhong and Zhang Xiuzhu. However, without a doubt, this view was tantamount to disrespecting the Dragon King, who proposed to lead the army to the south. But if they agreed with the Dragon King's view, then they would offend the king of the northern frontier and the director of MI7. If everything went well, it would be fine, but if the Shuangjian barbarian really took this opportunity to attack the northern frontier, who would end up well? Go. I have a different view. Lei Qiuxing walked out of the crowd with his hands behind his back. He said in a deep voice, "First of all, if the Dragon King is right, then this is indeed the best time for us to eliminate the Immortals and the Sky Demon. If we don't act now, when the Sky Demon is ready, or when that powerful person outside the Heaven Gate leaves, the price we will have to pay will definitely be much more painful than if the Shuangjian barbarian invades the northern frontier." As his voice fell, everyone nodded in agreement. None of the generals of the northern frontier were theoretical, especially those who could appear in front of Lin Yuan. They were basically people who had made a name for themselves after the establishment of the northern frontier. Perhaps not all of them were potential generals, but they were still clear about the basic analysis of the battle situation. Just like what Lei Qiuxing said, if you don't accept it, you will be punished. If they missed the opportunity now, it would be tantamount to missing the opportunity. In any military war in history, those who missed the opportunity would suffer heavy losses or even be completely wiped out, unless they were extremely lucky. As the former Gemini of the 10,000 Swords dynasty, Lei Qiuxing, who had defeated the Duke of Baixing on land, could be said to have a thorough analysis of the battle situation and the future trend. They had personally experienced how terrifying the Sky Demon was when he was at his peak. The Blackwater army was almost completely wiped out, and Yan Xingqi died in battle. Other than Zhao Guangchong, who was thought to be doomed at that time, the rest of the people who had attacked the Sky Demon were all wiped out. Therefore, the actual combat strength of the Sky Demon was actually above that of the northern frontier. Now, they should take advantage of the fact that the Sky Demon had no reinforcements. Once the powerful person mentioned by the Dragon King left and the Sky Demon's reinforcements arrived, they would drag the northern frontier to death in a tug-of-war. And speaking of which, although the Shuangjian barbarian is eyeing the northern frontier covetously, they might not really dare to attack. Lei Qiuxing looked at Lin Yuan with burning eyes and said in a deep voice, "Just like when the Xinwu dynasty was still around, although the Frost Mirror barbarian attacked the pass every year, they never really dared to enter the territory of the Xinwu dynasty. Not to mention the Central Plains, they didn't even dare to enter the north. This is because these Shuangjian barbarian are used to bullying the weak and fearing the strong. They are like jackals in the wilderness, only having the guts to eat rotten meat. Now that the Dragon King is famous everywhere, I think that even if the Shuangjian barbarian had any intentions before, they would not dare to invade the northern frontier anymore." The Shuangjian dynasty did not dare to invade the Xinwu dynasty on a large scale, not only because the 7 dynasties had been passed down for many years, but more importantly, the Xinwu dynasty's Shen Linjun, as a heavy infantry, was indeed worthy of the title of invincible. It was also worthy of the various resources that Lei Qiuxing spent on him every year. Even if the Shuangjian dynasty's most elite Shueliao cavalry went up against Shen Linjun, unless the difference in numbers between the two sides was too great, they would not be able to make Shen Linjun's position retreat even half a step. If the light cavalry did not rely on their mobility to move and insisted on chopping iron cans, what was the difference between that and seeking death? Unfortunately, this was the way of a war to destroy a country. You could only move forward, forward, and forward. You could not let go of any enemy, especially Shen Linjun, who was an organized existence. Today you chose to avoid them because you were no match for them, but in the future they would become a thorn in your side, a thorn in your flesh, and make you suffer so much that you would rather die. Was there a Xin Lin Jun in the northern frontier? No. The Xin Lin Jun in Lei Qiuxing's hands had almost all been killed by Hamba. Even if there were some remaining, they would not be able to form an organized army to threaten the Shuangjin dynasty's cavalry. As for the Blackwater army, they had also suffered heavy losses when they fought against the Sky Demon. Although they could still fight, they were destined to fail without a miracle. However, the northern frontier had an advantage that the Xinwu dynasty did not have, and that was Lin Yuan. When Lin Yuan killed the two fox demons, he didn't have any intention of hiding it. Not to mention the big boss of the Heavenly Gate, even if it was only a Heavenly Dipper realm and Kongming realm cultivator, as long as the distance was not too far, they could clearly see the battle. In other words, Lin Yuan was demonstrating his power. He was telling the world that he, Lin Yuan, had killed two theoretically invincible existences on the spot with an invincible momentum. On the other hand, as long as a powerful existence like Lin Yuan was in charge of the northern frontier, how many forces would have the guts to touch the dragon whiskers of the northern frontier? That group of Shuangjin barbarian who bullied the weak and feared the strong? Would they dare to provoke the northern frontier at this time? From a personal point of view, Lei Qiuxing felt that this possibility was close to zero. However, there was always a possibility, so he could not say for sure. However, it was not against the law to express his opinion, right? I admit that the time has come, but there are some things that we have to guard against. Therefore, I think that the southern expedition, which is currently in charge of the northern frontier, must not be mobilized. The other armies do not have enough ability to conquer the central plains and the south. Therefore, why don't we wait for a while and settle other things first? Li Zhong looked hatefully at Lei Qiuxing and said in a deep voice. He was clear about his Dragon King's temperament. Although the Dragon King would listen to his subordinates' suggestions, he was still an overbearing monarch. If he made a decision, he would definitely not change it, unless all his subordinates opposed this decision. Seeing that he was about to persuade Lin Yuan, Lei Qiuxing suddenly jumped out and interfered. Li Zhong even had the intention to kill. Chapter 10:14. There are some things that we have to guard against. However, compared to hiding in the dark and plotting against each other, the conclusion we come to might not be correct. It might even be just your own baseless conjecture. Therefore, why don't we ask the Shuangjin dynasty directly? Lei Qiuxing's eyes flashed. He said in a low voice, the southern expedition will officially cross the border between the northern frontier and the Frost Mirror grassland if they are still determined to attack the northern frontier. At that time, if the Shuangjin barbarian is still determined to wait for an opportunity to attack the northern frontier, their first reaction will definitely be to mobilize their army and directly start a war with us. However, if the Shuangjin barbarian contacts us immediately, it means that the Shuangjin barbarian is indeed frightened by the Dragon King's battle record of killing the two demon kings. At that time, the southern expedition can set their minds at ease and head south to fight with the Sky Demon. Li Zhong was so angry that his whole body trembled. He roared, "You are not probing, you are inviting a war. Have you ever thought that if the Shuangjin barbarian really starts a war with us, the main force of the southern expedition will definitely be delayed in the Frost Mirror grassland? Firstly, the terrain is not favorable for us. Secondly, when our rear is empty, it will no longer be us plotting to conquer the central plains and the south. It will be the Sky Demon who will be thinking about how to take advantage of this opportunity to completely turn our northern frontier into a wasteland." Both sides had their own arguments. Everyone present was at a loss of what to do. The northern frontier was undoubtedly in an awkward situation. Once the southern expedition entered the Shuangjin dynasty's territory, a war would definitely break out. Even if the Shuangjin dynasty didn't dare start a large-scale war, it wouldn't be a problem for them to allow the smaller tribes to attack the southern expedition. After all, the Shuangjin dynasty was different from the other dynasties. The royal family's ability to control the other tribes was shockingly low. Therefore, this reason made sense. If the northern frontier didn't let go, then it would mean that the northern frontier wanted to start a war with the Shuangjin dynasty. Naturally, the nature of the situation would be different. Most importantly, although the current southern expedition was able to contain the Frost Mirror barbarian forces, they had to rely on the Great Wall built at the northern border. If they really left the protection of the Great Wall and went to the Frost Mirror grassland to fight the barbarian cavalry, they would be courting death. After all, a war of extermination was different from a war of defense. Not to mention that the southern expedition didn't have a heavy infantry corps like the Shinlin-jun and the Blackwater Army. Even if they did, it wouldn't change the situation. If the battlefield was on the Frost Mirror grassland, the Frost Mirror barbarian forces would definitely not fight the Northern Frontier Army head-on. They would focus on the mobility of their cavalry and wander around the main forces of the Northern Frontier. They would constantly kill the main forces of the Northern Frontier, including but not limited to the scouts, supply teams and civilian workers. They would all die under the Frost Mirror barbarian scimitars. After that, the Frost Mirror barbarian forces would only need to slowly delay the main forces of the Northern Frontier and wait for them to run out of ammunition and food. The Xinwu dynasty's countless wars with the Shuangjian dynasty had proven this point. When the Frost Mirror barbarian raided the borders, if they encountered solid city defenses and elite Xinwu border army, they would definitely collapse. However, once the Xinwu dynasty's army entered the Frost Mirror grassland, it would be merciful to be killed by the scimitars. However, no matter what Li Zhong and Lei Qiuxing said, the Northern Frontier still acted according to Lin Yuan's will. In other words, when Lin Yuan said that he wanted to use this opportunity to recover the Central Plains, the South and completely eliminate the Sky Demon, the entire Northern Frontier would act on this basis. The current argument was just that the timing wasn't good. However, from the opinions of these two people, it was indeed in line with their personalities. Lei Qiuxing, who was born in the military, had not changed his belligerent nature even though he had been an emperor for several decades. Li Zhong, on the other hand, was different. She was more like a kind and gentle old mother. When she faced her child in the northern region, she would always take care of everything and handle everything in an orderly manner, not giving anyone a chance to take advantage of her. One wanted to take the risk and reap the greatest rewards. The other wanted to make sure that he was in an invincible position even if he had to delay the battle. In reality, neither of them were wrong. It was just that their ideals were different. However, with Li Zhong's personality, when Lei Qiuxing was on the throne, he wouldn't be put in an important position. Even if he climbed to the top, he would only be able to become a prefectural governor in the Central Plains. From the beginning until now, I've always felt that you two seem to have overlooked two things. Li Zhongxing's eyes narrowed slightly. He opened his mouth and interrupted the confrontation between Li Zhong and Lei Qiuxing. He said in a deep voice, "First, whether the Shuangjian dynasty wants to go to war with the Northern Frontier doesn't need to be discussed. Because whether they are afraid of the Dragon King or not, once the Northern Frontier shows signs of weakness, they will definitely take advantage of the situation. This is the nature of the Shuangjian barbarian. Therefore we don't need to probe and don't need to worry about it. Isn't it fine if we attack from another angle and make the Frost Mirror barbarian too busy to take care of himself?" At this point he paused. His eyes turned and he said indifferently, "The second thing is that the Dragon King has brought back a large number of civilians and cultivators from the south. This is a supplement to the strength of the Northern Frontier. At the same time, it is also a key point for us to break out of this situation. If we can use it properly, all our troubles won't be trouble." The Hengduan Mountains. The Hengduan Mountains. Lei Qiuxing and Li Zhong cried out in surprise almost one after the other. Only their tones were slightly different. Lei Qiuxing was somewhat shocked, but when he looked at Li Zhongxing, his eyes were clearly filled with gratification. He had never fought with Li Zhongxing on the battlefield, but arranging troops and formations wasn't all of a general's talent. Outstanding foresight and the ability to adapt according to the situation were the important factors that determined whether a general was outstanding or not. If the Northern Frontier attacked the Shuangjian dynasty, the Sky Demon would take advantage of it. Conversely, if the Northern Frontier attacked the Sky Demon, the Shuangjian dynasty would also take advantage of it. But just like before, if they didn't do anything with such a great opportunity in front of them, even Li Zhong, who advocated not to make any big moves at this time, couldn't help but feel disappointed. How to break out of this situation? It could be said to be simple, but it could also be said to be difficult. The Shuangjian dynasty was actually more worried about the coming war than the Northern Frontier. Because of the Northern Frontier's scheme and the Sky Demon's arrival, the Shuangjian dynasty had suffered heavy losses one after another. They had lost a lot of manpower and resources. Even Mirrorfrost Kagan felt that his position was in danger. According to the rules of the grasslands, Mirrorfrost Kagan had to win to his heart's content and bring honor and resources to the warriors of the grasslands. Otherwise there would be chaos soon. But looking around, it seemed like the Northern Frontier was the only one that was easy to bully. This was the reason why the Shuangjian dynasty had their eyes on the Northern Frontier. If not for their fear of Lin Yuan, and the fact that the northern frontier was not as strong as the other dynasties, the Shuangjin dynasty would have attacked them a long time ago. Chapter 10:15. The easiest way to break out of this situation was to let the Shuangjin dynasty fall into war. When they were too busy to take care of themselves, they would naturally stop thinking about how to plunder the northern frontier. The northern frontier would also have enough depth to attack the Sky Demon. When everything was settled down, the Shuangjin dynasty would also inevitably pay the price for their current actions. How could the Shuangjin dynasty fall into war when the northern frontier didn't take action? The Hengduan Mountains. Originally, the various monster clans and even the Monster King court in the Hengduan Mountains had an excellent relationship with the northern frontier. Every time a monster tide was launched, the monsters that were supposed to attack the Shenwu dynasty would be diverted to another direction. This undoubtedly made the other 6 dynasties suffer. After all, although the Hengduan Mountains was only a land monster range that was raised by the 7 dynasties, strictly speaking, none of the 7 dynasties could face the attack of the Hengduan Mountains alone. Even if the monster tide only increased the intensity of the monster tide, it was enough to make one of the dynasties pay an extremely heavy price. Later on, because of the Immortals, the connection between the Hengduan Mountains and the northern frontier was cut off. However, the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce could still safely pass through the Hengduan Mountains for trade. Neither the Immortals nor the monsters of the Hengduan Mountains would attack them. However, any spies sent by the higher-ups of the northern frontier never returned. This unusual situation clearly showed that all the disturbances of the Immortals and the monsters of the Hengduan Mountains were caused by the same person. Now that the mastermind had been severely injured by the Dragon King and had no time to deal with other matters in a short period of time, what else could they do but contact the monsters of the Hengduan Mountains? But was it really that simple? Let me make it clear first. I don't mean to pour cold water on you guys, but in a sense you guys are thinking too much. Don't forget that there are also changes in the Hengduan Mountains. 2 of the 3 Beast Kings are missing. The Beast King Kirin is still seriously injured and unconscious. Even if they have calmed down the disturbances in the Hengduan Mountains, the aftermath is only the beginning of all the complicated things. Let's not talk about the fact that the Beast Lord, the Qilin, already had the thought of abdicating and giving the title of Beast Lord to other monster beasts. Even if the Beast Lord, the Qilin, had never expressed such thoughts, the monster beast clans in the Hengduan Mountain range would not miss such a good opportunity. Once they obtained the authority of the Monster Beast Imperial Court and the title of Beast Lord, coupled with the power of the Monster Beast clans behind them, it would be hard to say if the other party would still maintain the same attitude towards us as before. In the past, the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce could run amok in the Hengduan Mountains because the Beast King Kirin himself supported the Dragon King. With the Beast King above them, even if the other monster clans were dissatisfied, they could only accept this fact. However, the new Beast King's attitude towards the northern frontier was still a mystery. Of course, even if the new Beast King had just ascended to the throne and needed strong support to stabilize his position, he would still adopt a conciliatory policy towards the northern frontier. However, would the monster clans behind him give up on the benefits of the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce? Even if the monster clans were willing to give up, what would the other powerful clans think? No matter how amazing the new Beast King is, there is one thing that is without a doubt. After becoming the Beast King, no matter how powerful he is, there will still be existences in the entire Hengduan Mountains that can contend against him. Therefore, whether or not the Beast King can subdue all the other beasts is mainly dependent on his prestige and credibility. A new Beast King does not possess these conditions. Li Zhong narrowed his eyes slightly and said meaningfully, "Also, don't forget that our Dragon King is also a strong candidate for the position of Beast King. He has the favor of the Beast King Kirin and the 3 other Beast Kings. He also has the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce and the armed forces of the entire northern frontier. On top of that, the Dragon King's current terrifying strength. If he wants to become the Beast King, it is only a matter of time. Therefore, the moment we enter the Hengduan Mountains, before we can do anything, those monster clans that want to fight for the position of Beast King will join hands to suppress us." These words could be said to be very true. In Lin Yuan's previous world, when a chance for promotion was placed in front of them, the other candidates would undoubtedly cheer when a convincing candidate did not participate in the election due to some coincidence. However, in the process of the election, the person who did not participate in the election suddenly wanted to participate in the election. Then the other candidates would immediately put aside their grudges and join hands to kick this guy out of the election. You're right. I am indeed the most powerful successor to the position of Beast Lord. Especially now, my strength and influence are all stronger than those so-called great demonic beast clans. Unless they join hands to deal with me, any great demonic beast clan that faces me alone will be easily destroyed. Don't underestimate the intelligence of demonic beasts. Once I appear in the Hengduan mountain range, I will definitely be besieged by demonic beasts from all over. Lin Yuan nodded slightly and agreed with Li Zhizhong's words. However, after a moment, Lin Yuan changed the topic and said with a sinister smile, "But the problem is, who told you that I want the position of Beast King?" As soon as he finished speaking, the expressions of everyone present changed. Just as Li Zhong had said before, the profits brought by the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce were incomparably huge. Even the guardians of the Heavenly Gate did not dare to say that they could completely ignore it, especially those Dao Initiation Realm cultivators who were comparable to Monster Kings. Their demand for cultivation resources was incomparably huge, so when Lin Yuan wanted to kick them out, there was such a huge reaction. How could the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce have such huge profits? Firstly, the boss of the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce was Lin Yuan, a dragon bloodline monster from the Hengduan Mountains. No matter how much the monster clans criticized Lin Yuan behind his back, they still had to show some respect to the dragon clan of the Four Seas on the surface. In addition, the Beast King Kirin and the 3 Beast Kings were also included. Some monster clans that did not want to compete for the position of Beast King were actually optimistic about Lin Yuan. Therefore, the caravans of the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce could be said to be unscrupulous in the Hengduan Mountains. As long as they did not violate any taboos or take the initiative to step into some forbidden areas, the monsters in the Hengduan Mountains would turn a blind eye. Secondly, because of the existence of the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce, it was difficult for other humans to enter the Hengduan Mountains to collect fees. After all, Lin Yuan was a monster, and no matter what, he was still a monster of the Hengduan Mountains. Therefore, the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce brought them all kinds of convenience. At the same time, if a monster used feis or monster corpses to exchange for supplies, Lin Yuan would give a fair price. This was something that other human chambers of commerce could not do, or rather, it was difficult to maintain. Of course, humans had always been robbing the Hengduan Mountains. There was no such thing as negotiation. Chapter 10:16. Thirdly, the power of the land goblin beasts had always been limited to the Hengduan Mountains. Lin Yuan could be said to have the merit of expanding the territory. Meanwhile, there was another demon venerable who was tyrannical in the southern wastelands. Even though he used the banner of the goblin beasts, he had formed his own demon bloodline and had nothing to do with the Hengduan Mountains. His subordinates were mainly goblin beasts that lived in swamps, water bodies and miasma forests. They had nothing to do with the Hengduan Mountains. Although the demon venerable in the southern wastelands lived on land, there was no doubt that they had a closer relationship with the endless sea. Fourthly, the special geographical environment of the northern frontier was there. Other than the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce, no other group could cross the Hengduan Mountains. Just like how many ancient gods were sleeping in the endless sea and how many ancestral demons were hidden, the Hengduan Mountains, which was the leader of the land goblin bloodlines, was definitely not simple. Not to mention ordinary merchant groups. Even if you could invite the Heavenly Gate Guardians to escort you, there was a possibility that you would die in the Hengduan Mountains if you were not careful. Thus, no merchant group could move around as easily as the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce. Unless you only made deals with the neighboring empires, you would have to pass through the northern frontier. When that time came, you would naturally take your revenge. It was worth mentioning that there had been people who had intercepted and killed the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce and snatched the keepsake of the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce while traveling through the Hengduan Mountains. However, those who had done so had basically become dead. The reason was very simple. The keepsake of the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce had a time limit. From the northern frontier to the other empires through the Hengduan Mountains, a round trip would only take 4 months at most. Furthermore, the keepsake distributed by the northern frontier was different according to different merchant groups' routes. After this time limit, the keepsake would naturally lose its effect. If one still took it out when encountering goblin beasts, they would die extremely miserably. The 4 reasons mentioned above were enough to set off Lin Yuan's extraordinary status in the Hengduan Mountains. Not only was he well established and had made contributions to the Hengduan Mountains, but he had also brought convenience and benefits to the various goblin clans in the Hengduan Mountains. At the same time, he had blocked the interests of the other 6 empires, causing them to have no choice but to cooperate with the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce. Unless they worked together to destroy the northern frontier, no one could think of doing business. However, the most important thing, all of Lin Yuan's extraordinary privileges in the northern frontier had to be established on the premise that the Beast Lord of the Hengduan Mountains was not greedy. The Beast Lord Kirin and the 3 Beast Lords would not order the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce around. This was because Lin Yuan himself would give them a certain amount of profits. Naturally, these Beast Lords would not make things difficult for the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce. However, what if the new Beast Lord was not as calm as the Beast Lord Kirin and was greedy for more profits? If that was the case, the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce would be in an awkward position. If the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce lowered its head, its profits would be greatly reduced. Furthermore, this was not the end. This was because the Beast Lord did not have enough prestige and credibility to suppress the other goblin clans. Therefore, after the Beast Lord took the lead, the other goblin clans would also find an excuse to ask for more profits. There was no way to determine whether the new Beast Lord of the northern frontier was greedy or not. However, after living in the border with the goblin clans for so long, although they had seen the honest and forthright side of the goblin clans, they had seen much more about the survival of the fittest and the law of the jungle. Some goblin beasts that looked honest were actually much more sinister than ordinary humans. They would not have the slightest bottom line or scruples when doing things. As for the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce that supported the development of the northern frontier, it was starting to feel powerless. Some of the projects and even the research and development projects of the Ministry of Works were forced to stop. If its income was further reduced, the northern frontier might collapse because of this. This was also the reason why Lin Yuan could not wait to reclaim the Central Plains in the south. After all, only by increasing income and reducing expenditure could one become rich. The northern frontier could no longer reduce expenditure. He was not a lazy transmigrator who did not have a goal and only wanted to dominate the other world. After coming into contact with the secrets of the ancient times, even if he did not want to return to the world of his previous life to complete his revenge, there was still a great enemy like Hongjun pressing down on him. Therefore, for the northern frontier, the best way to solve this problem was to support the next Beast Lord. In other words, I have no way to guarantee that the new Beast Lord would not covet the benefits of the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce. Therefore, I can only do my best to guarantee that the new Beast Lord will be a demon of the northern frontier. Although there were many demon beasts living in the northern frontier, no matter whether it was their race or their strength, they were not enough to compete for the position of Beast Lord. The only one who had the qualifications and the ability to guarantee that he would definitely become the Beast Lord was Lin Yuan alone. But now Lin Yuan had declared that he had no interest in the position of Beast Lord? Was this a joke? The demon beasts in the Hengduan mountain range are all fighting for the position of Beast Lord. However, just like what you have analyzed, the most honorable position in the Hengduan mountain range is now just for show. It sounds impressive, but in reality, it still needs to rely on prestige and credibility to convince the masses. So much so that the Beast Lord who was supposed to rule over all the beasts has become a Beast Lord, who can only mediate the disputes between different races. Lin Yuan's blue-white vertical pupils flashed coldly. He said word by word, "This king has no interest in such a Beast Lord. Even if this king wants to be the Beast Lord, this king wants to be the Beast Lord who can subdue all the beasts with his own strength. If that's the case, then there's a lot of room for manipulation." Li Xin, who had been silent all this while, suddenly brightened his eyes. He said in a deep voice, "The reason why the demon beasts in the Hengduan mountain range are afraid of us is undoubtedly because the comprehensive strength of the northern frontier is far greater than theirs. Therefore, if we join the battle, the position of Beast Lord will most likely be ours. However, if we directly declare that we won't compete for the position of Beast Lord, as soon as we enter, those demon beasts won't be too hostile towards us." Speaking of this, Li Xin raised his hand and gestured twice. He said excitedly, "With the position of Beast Lord, we only need to promise to help them compete for the position of Beast Lord, and we will be able to get the help of many weaker demon beasts. As for those stronger demon beasts, they may not take us seriously at first, but in order to prevent us from interfering, they will help us. Whether it's sending a beast tide to attack the Frost Mirror grassland or finding out those who are hiding in the Hengduan mountain range, it's only a matter of time. No force has the ability to play hide-and-seek with the demon beasts who have lived there for countless years. Reconsideration. Well said. That's what I think too. As soon as Li Xian's voice fell, everyone around him began to express their opinions. No one doubted what the new Beast Lord would do if he coveted the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce. Did the Dragon King, who had casually killed 2 Demon Kings, not even have this bit of prestige? You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.